Evening, and thank you for coming and participating tonight. Call to order the meeting of Budget Committee of the School District. It is Wednesday, May 27th at 6:01. First item addressed is 1.1, adoption of the agenda. May I please have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye, raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Just so.
Aye.
Any, just in case. All right. Unanimous. Thank you all. All right. Item 2.0, introduction of guests. I do not believe we have any. Yes. Regina, are you aware of any that we might be waiting on?
Nope, I think everybody who said they were going to be here is in.
Fantastic. Okay. We will move on to item 3.1, the approval of the minutes from April 22nd, 2026. So if I could have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes.
Newman, thank you. And a second. All right. Thank you so much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you so much. Looks like that was unanimous. Okay. We'll move to reports. Item 4.1, budget process review. And with this, I will hand it off to Director Paul Southerton.
Wonderful. And can I get a quick verification that folks can see my screen? I will forever remember Director Andrews, who reminded me as I was 4 or 5 slides deep in there that I wasn't presenting a few years back. So
You're good.
Thumbs up. All right.
We see you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here this evening for meeting number 2 of the Centennial 2026-2027 budget process. So as Budget Chair Hardin shared, I'll be reviewing the process and several other parts of the budget, or provided budget summary tonight, and then we'll get into the other action items. But I just want to reiterate that Centennial School District has a community participatory budget process with equal representation of board members and community members who work together to determine the goals and the priorities for spending of the next school year. So just to kind of a look back of where we've been in the process and next steps. So budget priorities were established by this committee, as well as school district leadership, schools themselves, community input, and through various engagement activities back through January through March. The administration drafted a proposed budget and presented it to this committee and the public in April of 2026, so last month. And then tonight here, we're back with the proposed approved budget for you all to review based on feedback that we've received. And tonight you'll be receiving the budget, hearing testimony from the public, then having an opportunity to deliberate and consider approving the updated budget, tax rate, and bond collection amount. Should this committee choose to approve the budget this evening, then the budget would move forward to the final step, which is consideration by the school board in June of formal adoption of the budget. We received and answered more than 50 questions and comments about the budget that came from this committee, as well as members of the public and members of the school district employee groups and others. So we appreciate the thoughtful review of the proposed budget and the feedback that we received. I'm pleased to share with the committee tonight that there are no financial changes for the approved budget from the proposed budget that was released and shared with you all back in April. So we are not coming to you tonight with any financial changes for the approved budget. Is exactly as was proposed financially to you all in April. A summary of our budget, I think, can be simply stated as this is a very much a student-focused budget. If you look year over year, you see there are increased investments in instruction, millions of dollars more spending in instruction, and that is directly in the classroom as defined by the Oregon Department of Education, directly resulting in smaller class sizes and continued opportunities for Centennial students. So we have limited resources, but we are choosing to spend them very much centered on serving students in the best way we can with the resources provided. This is more clearly evidenced in supporting our goals, the 5 goals of our strategic plan. As you can see from the screen, we're anticipating that throughout elementary, we will see an average class size of 24:1. This does not include music or PE, special education, and others. This is not a ratio, but this is the actual contained classroom for general education. We focused our strategic plan. Goal number 1 is specific to pre-K through 3, but holistically of K through 5, the 24:1 is the average. So including 4th and 5th grade. What you see on the screen is just specifically though pre-K through 3rd. Supporting students through our other strategic plan goals, you can see we continue all our supports with school psychs, assistant principals, professional development, continuing the insourcing of the functional life skills programming and learning specialists, continuing student focus groups, co-curricular activities, clubs, and student council opportunities. There's been no reductions to services for students in this budget. Through supporting goal 4, we offer stable class sizes and indeed smaller class sizes at the elementary level. As the district is an outlier in the region in that we are maintaining and improving lower class sizes in our district. You've heard on the news, I'm sure, that there are numerous districts facing severe budget challenges and class sizes increasing. That's not the case at Centennial. We're supporting goal number 5 through maintaining CTE programs, Centennial Virtual Academy, professional development to enhance academic programming. We're also maintaining the budget committee's priorities of co-curricular activities for student voice, music, arts, athletics, and clubs. So continuing to support the middle school sports that were brought back several years ago, and continuing to support other CTE and other programmings for students through Measure 98. Overall, as I said, we anticipate an elementary average class size K through 5 or pre-K through 5 of 1 to 24. Middle school, we're staffing at a ratio of 1 licensed general education teacher for every 23 students. Because teachers do have a prep period, the average class size will be right around 30 at the middle school level. And then similarly with high school, we're at a ratio of 1 to 23.4 and a class size of right around 31. So we will have larger and we will have smaller depending on sections. There's often reasons to have larger class sizes in physical education classes, in band, in choir. It's actually advantageous to have larger class sizes. And then there's a lot of electives and other classes where we'll have smaller class sizes. So these are averages. Overall, the adopted budget for 26-27 maintains all critical current services for students. It continues leveraging grants and special funds to support student mental health, learning specialists, special education support, and smaller class sizes. We can continue our investment in co-curricular activities and student leadership opportunities, and it continues investments in improving teaching and learning environments through our capital investment, our classroom improvement funds, and our other investments that we're making in our facilities. Important to note, as previously shared as part of our planned spend down, it does require up to a $3.55 million deficit for next year. So resources are provided by the state are $3.5 million less than what we're proposed spending in the general fund. We do have a robust ending fund balance, and indeed it is higher than the board policy on ending fund balance. So a planned, intentional, measured spend down is prudent and it supports student needs at this time, and that's why it's being proposed.
Okay.
Overall, informed by the Centennial Budget Committee as well as the Centennial community staff, and students through ongoing strategic plan engagement and implementation sessions. The administration respectfully submits for your consideration the 26-27 Centennial School budget for a total of $177,513,722, including the general fund budget in the amount of $104,856,962, and all other fund budgets in the amount of $72,656,760. The proposed general fund permanent tax rate is 4.7448 per thousand of assessed value, and the proposed tax levy is $4,727,138 for the 26-27 bonded general obligation debt payments. It's an awful lot of information for you all. I welcome feedback and questions the committee may have.
All right, that is a lot of numbers. That is a lot of numbers. I'll go through each of us and give us the opportunity to ask the questions that may be. I'll just start on my list. We'll start with Board Chair Mooring. Did you have any questions?
Thank you. No questions at this time.
Thank you. All right. Sequoia, Alan, did you have any questions?
Hello, no question at this time, but can I send them in the email after I go over all the numbers?
You can certainly send questions at any time you'd like.
Perfect, thank you.
She lived with us in June for a year.
Well, I think you're having a tough time.
She got a job back.
So
So Adam,
Rod Betcher?
I'm having trouble with my voice staying on. I'm in mute. I'm into mute now. I hope I'm getting through. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I just have a couple of questions, and I think this is probably just kind of a couple of overriding questions which can be asked at any time, but I want to ask them now for my sound.
Oh, your audio cut out, Rod.
Gives out on me again, and Paul, but
We missed
am I there?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just not touch my screen. In the making of the budget and trying to making sure that we can get to all of the groups that want to have not want to and need to have the money, how much thought is putting in now that I see that there's talk about the new bond getting online to be looked at by the public earlier than we had talked about when we were in talks with the current bond we just finished looking at. So I wanted to make sure that we're looking at next year's bond as well as finishing up all of the building that we've done with the last bond. And I know there's not a great time to start things because we have so many things going on. I'm just concerned that we're going to get into a position where we don't think about it as much, and we're starting to spend money that would be better be used to prep for the next bond try. So can you speak to that and tell me with maybe some examples in the current budget how we've maintained that is focused on the what I don't know what to call it, 27, 28 or 28, 29 budget.
Yeah, so we budget 1 year at a time. And so what you'll see with anything, should the board wish to consider a capital improvement bond after June 2027, which this budget only goes through June 2027, and the board has not approved a motion to put anything on the ballot before June 2027. So what you could observe in this would be under the board function, you do see funding to continue our long range facilities planning, which would inform any future bond activities or any future bond items that the board may wish to consider. So that's where you would see that for in this 1-year budget.
Oh, I gotta go to my spouse.
Oh, yeah.
So you
Uh,
wouldn't. Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm concerned that we're only looking at 1 year ahead from what you said, and we're not thinking about that in the current bond, because we're just looking 1 year ahead, and that's all we ever have been
We budget
doing.
1 year ahead. We do multi-year planning, Rod. We don't. We have a long-term budgeting philosophy, so we are looking multiple years out, but you're not going to find evidence in a 1-year budget of what we plan for next year. Does that make
Okay.
sense? We can't earmark or placeholder 27, 28 spending in a 26, 27 budget. It's not permitted by budget law. So you're
Okay.
not going to see it in the budget document and what the committee can approve tonight.
When the team goes out to try to sell this bond, I think I want to make sure that we offer something aside from having a surplus as a means to help pass the bond. So I want to be able to go out and really talk it up, and that we're always looking forward looking in a meaningful way, or some way that you could point to yourself and anyone else out for the bond could point to and say, look at this. And then we're also doing this. We're getting the safety nets ready. We're getting the projections from the state cared for. And that's all I'm concerned about. Is that
Okay.
the many
We're losing your audio again, Rod.
people, when the bond is coming due, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, and that it looks like we're forward planning rather than kind of staying back 1 or 2 years. So I don't know if that makes sense in planning for a 1-year budget, but it seems to make a very big difference when you're talking with the voters out there, as I did for the last budget.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that feedback, and we're absolutely are doing that, and that's evidenced through the long-range facilities planning, and then our thoughtful budgeting process that we engage in year after year, and why we're in such better position than our neighboring districts. So we can work on telling that story, though.
Yes, and that's a great story to tell.
So Paul, I would add to that, just in terms of the efforts that we are doing, because I think this is going to meet the interest of what Rod's expressing here as well. We can budget 1 year at a time. We're thinking a few years in advance. So we have the long range facility planning, and I don't know as far as the payment for that, if that's reflected in this year's budget or if we paid that in full during the last fiscal year, because it's a continuation over a 2-year cycle with that. We have our reports to the community that we continue to do, which aren't necessarily bond related, but they do tell the story of the district, and particularly to individuals who aren't necessarily parents in our district, but all residents and community members. And then finally, I would say that we're looking for ways in the subsequent budget in terms of how to bolster our community engagement efforts, because we know if we are in a bond cycle, there will be information that we need to share about the results of the long range facility plan and what sort of capital needs were identified that we need to be able to elevate. So those are 3 ways that I can think of that we're thinking in terms of that process. If the board were to go for a bond, the current thinking is that that would be positioned for fall of 28. But again, that's the board's prerogative, as Director Southerton previously noted. Paul, would you add or clean up anything that I shared there?
No, I think that's great. Thank you.
Okay, just want to keep it up in the vision of all the people, both employees, students, and their parents.
All right. Thank you, Rod. Moving on, Rudy Watzig. Any questions?
Hi, Jess. Thank you. No questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Director Rose Falowski, any questions?
Thank you, Director Harden. I have no questions on the 2026-2027 budget. They've all been answered in the last several weeks, so good work, you guys.
Great. Thank you very much. Director Newman, did you have any questions?
Thank you. No questions for me. It's been a good process thus far. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Stanley, did you have any questions?
I do not. Everything is really well laid out and all of my previous questions have been answered.
Thank you so much. Karen Wolfgang, did you have any questions?
Not at this time. They were all answered. Thank you again, as usual, for a very responsive process. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lynn, did you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Jeanette, do you have any questions?
I currently don't have any questions at this time.
All right. Thank you so much. And Board Chair Shields, did you have any questions?
I have about 12 here. Not really. I'm just teasing you. You guys have really done a great, a bang up job like you always do. Much appreciated. No questions at this time.
All right. And myself, I do not have any questions. I do want to say thank you to you all for your engagement. It was lots of great questions were asked, and thank you all so much for your engagement, and thank you to the business office for putting it together and coming up with answers for all of our questions, inside the box and outside the box. It was great. Okay. All right. So at this time, I think I got everybody. Is there anybody I missed? Okay. Not seeing any. All right. So at this time, we're going to move to item 4.4, public testimony. So I'm going to open it up for any members of the public that would like to submit any testimony or have any comments. And at this time, we'll open it up and give everyone a chance. I didn't see anyone in the gallery, but please feel free to raise your hand or speak up if you are there. Okay. Seeing and hearing none. Regina, did you have anything? Anyone from the public reach out to you?
Nope, there is nobody and there aren't any questions.
Okay. We will close public testimony then. Thank you all for your patience there. We'll move on to item 4.5, deliberation by the budget committee. This, I'll open it up to anyone who has any additional comments, questions. Feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you. Melissa Stanley, go ahead.
I just feel like it warrants saying again how thankful and grateful that I am for the thoughtfulness with all of our budgeting. Being surrounded by districts that are struggling hardcore, I'm just grateful that we have time for these conversations. We have people that really truly know what they're doing and are making it student centered, and it's really, really wonderful.
Well said. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Last call. All right. Seeing no other hands, we will move forward. We'll move into item 5.0, 5.1 to be more specific, old business. So I need a volunteer. This is the motion for approval of the proposed budget, tax rate, and levy. So if we need a budget committee member to make the motion. read the following slide. Isn't that correct, Paul?
Correct. Yep.
I'm happy to do that.
Nice. Thank you, Karen.
I, Karen
Please.
Wolfgang, move for the approval of the 2026-27 Centennial School District budget as proposed of $177,513,722, including the general fund budget in the amount of $104,856,962, and all other fund budgets in the amount of $72,656,760. The general fund permanent tax rate of 4.7448 per thousand of assessed value, and a tax levy of $4,727,138 for bonded general obligation debt.
Second.
And there's a second. Who was that?
Director Stanley.
Director Stanley with the second. Okay, all those in favor say aye. And show your hands, it'd be great.
Aye.
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 Okay, I think I got everyone, but just in case, any nays? Okay, hearing none. Any abstains?
I abstain, and Jeanette.
And Jeanette abstains. Okay, thank you, Anjanette. All right. Well, with that, the budget is approved. And so the committee has approved the 2026-2027 budget, general tax fund rate and levy for the bond. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your energy and engagement. Really appreciate it. And we will move. There's no new business. Paul, anything go to the order? Any last calls?
No, just a lot of gratitude for you all. I know these are all unpaid positions. You're all sacrificing and diverting time from your families, rest time, other things, activities you may embark on or need to do, or have other things that demanding your time, and you choose to spend it here advocating for your community, advocating for our students, advocating for the district, and your thoughtful review of the budget, thoughtful feedback, questions, just a lot of gratitude for you all and the time that you put into this process and your commitment to the district. So thank you so much, and a lot of gratitude to the business office team. I'm up here before you, but there's a big team, you know, behind, well, small but mighty team, I guess is the term, right? Behind us, who puts in a lot of work for both the budget and the audit and business processes. So just a lot of gratitude to the team and to you all. So thank you so much.
All right. Well said. Thank you, Paul, and thank you to everyone. Well, it is 6:29, and we will call the meeting of the budget committee members, the budget committee meeting adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work.
Is there a different link?
This is the same link that we'll have for the work session
Great. And that will start at 7?
at 7 o'clock. Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Nice little break. Efficient. Oh.
See you, board members, at 7 o'clock. You feel good to take the out of your routine today? Okay, I'm looking around the room, see who we've got as directors here. I see Jess, I see Rose. I see David. I see Will's picture. I see Michael's picture. I see Will. We got about 2 minutes to go.
Hi, Isabel. Thanks for coming.
You see a hand raised, Allie?
Oh, if I did, it was not intentional. Lowering now.
No worries. You'd be surprised how many things happen during these sessions. So we do not worry about that kind of thing. Ah, there's Michael, I see him. Just about ready to begin, everyone. Waiting for it to turn to 7 p.m. All right. I'd like to call to order the Centennial School District Governing Board to meeting as a work session tonight, starting tonight at 7 p.m. Board members, your agenda has been in your board book. So could I have someone approve the meeting agenda for this evening? Motion to approve, I should have said.
Motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the board meeting agenda as presented. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. And because we are virtual, would you mind putting your hand up as well? It makes it easier for us to figure out who's doing the voting here. Thank you so much.
Aye.
Anyone objections to the agenda? Hearing none. All right, looks like we've got a unanimous. Let's move forward with this evening. Superintendent Owens, do we have an introduction of guests this evening?
No formal introduction of guests, but as you can see on the screen here, there's quite a few faces that you don't normally see. So those will be introduced in our first report. But as for this agenda topic, no.
All right, thank you so much. That helps us figure out that there are more people here this evening. Next on the agenda is the approval of our May 13th minutes. May I have a motion to approve as presented?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from May 13th.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion about those minutes? Any corrections? We're looking good. Thank you. All those in favor of approval of the minutes as presented indicate by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. Anybody else? We're good? All right. And we got another voter. I'm not sure she's allowed to vote as of yet. Oh gosh. Public forum is not applicable during work sessions for the board. So we're moving from number 4 to reports. And our first report is listed as District Equity Advisory Committee Annual Report. Dr. Kasuda, And Director Wright, you are on board. So the rest of us can mute ourselves and listen to your report this evening.
Wonderful. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen and also then introduce folks from our District Equity Advisory Committee who are joining us to co-present tonight. Can everyone see my screen? Excellent. Okay. I'm happy to introduce Kealani Balfour. She's the Career Technical Education Regional Program Manager and a member of our District Equity Advisory Committee, considered one of our community partner members on the committee. And also pleased to present Isabella Moreno Ventura. She's a student at Centennial High School. And then, of course, Denise is here as well. So the four of us are going to be co-presenting here tonight. So we'll start off with a brief overview of what we'll be presenting, providing you, for those who are not familiar, an overview and the purpose of the committee, provide you with information about committee members, progressions of our work as a committee, the learning so far, and student and parent perspectives. Okay.
I believe this is me. Hi, everyone. Kealani Balfour, CTE Regional Coordinator. I work out of MESD, and I have the pleasure and privilege of working with the school districts in East County's CTE programs, administrators, teachers, and students. We are here today to talk about what we do. And the purpose of our Equity Advisory Committee is to inform and advise the superintendent and district leadership on issues related to educational equity and access. This includes examining school and district situations that may disproportionately impact unrepresented students and help district leaders better understand how the policies, practices, and the decisions that they make affect students and families. Our work is grounded in Oregon statutes, including ORS 328, I have to read this part, 0.52 and ORS 329.95, which emphasize that equity, access, and inclusive educational practice for all students.
Thank you. All right. We're mindful of the fact that some of our Equity Advisory Committee members are engaged in the committee and may also not necessarily want their names broadcast to the public. So regardless of that, I thought it was important to provide you with who is on the committee. It was important to Denise and I, under the charge of the superintendent and the school board, to make sure we are honoring our commitment in the process of selecting committee members who reflected Centennial's community. So what you see here is a representation as it's set up so far. There are other ways to express the diversity of the committee, but this is just a brief snapshot here. We have 4 students on the committee, 3 high school and 1 middle schooler who couldn't be with us tonight because of a conflict with the school event. We have 3 staff members, 3 family members. We had 2 community partners. Now we have one community partner had a conflict. And then we have a community member who's community member at large. Of the 12 people on the committee, not counting Denise and I, we have 11 people of color, and about half of our committee is multilingual. All right. This slide represents the progression of the committee's work. It's important when you're doing equity work that you're not only establishing a strong sense of connection between the committee members, but then also a strong understanding of the context in which we are of which we are examining and trying to support, right? So you'll see here, we began by building the team and establishing a shared understanding of the committee's purpose and the legal guidance that brought the committee together. From there, we have focused on developing a contextual understanding by learning about the Centennial community, the district's systems, student demographics, and the data that reflects academic and climate progress for our students. And that included student and family survey results and our equity audit report. As our understanding deepened, the committee began orienting to potential priorities that have a significant impact on student learning experiences. A key part of this process has been viewing equity work as a continuous cycle of learning, reflection, feedback before action, while also intentionally building community and trust throughout our process. I'll leave it at that.
All right, and to take it a little bit further from what Dr. Kutsuda shared, really, we have spent most of this year in the forming and developing our team and purpose, as well as developing our contextual understanding. So as a part of forming and developing our team, we've really prioritized and spent time relationship building in the group over time. So we're collectively together just about once a month. And in those spaces, as we've built relationship, it allows opportunities to build that trust and those connections and understanding so that we can talk about sensitive issues that might come up in a building or across the district, as well as look at data with a really collective lens to really name some things that we may be wondering or questioning about. And again, that trust and those connections really help us to do that. We have been building and sharing our shared goals around equity and inclusion. And this last time, folks were really sharing that it's really nice to be in a space where people have shared values around this and really want to keep that at the center and the focus of our work. And it does help us continue to have honest conversations about culturally specific experiences that students are having, families are having, and what we really want for each and every student in our district. As a part of developing our understanding about Centennial, we have reviewed the equity audit that was conducted several years ago as a part of our strategic planning work. We have also looked deeper at the data that's connected to our district demographics. So looking at race and ethnicity, thinking about special populations across the district, looking at the spans of students between our elementary, middle, and high school. We've spent time as a group looking at the strategic plan much more in fine tune because there's multiple pages. If we look at the big 27-page document, we've pulled out more of those pieces to really look at what's involved and what we're hoping for the district and student experiences. We spent the most time reviewing our attendance data from many, many different lenses. And a part of looking at that attendance data, we've had the opportunity to look at the data that we have that's pulled from Synergy that we can put in graphs, but then the benefit of having families and students on the committee, they've also brought in their own experiences or experiences from friends or from family members that adds an additional layer to the data that we're looking at and brings it more to life. And so as a part of our conversations, we've gotten to a place where we feel like we're getting a little bit more narrowed in that what we want to dive deeper into for the next school year is thinking about that truly authentic parent and family partnerships with our schools. Our families have rich experiences and there's so much to offer. And the experiences students are having in schools, being able to bridge that. And so we really want to do some more work around that, as well as continue to think about the partnerships when it comes to attendance. There's so much that schools can do to impact attendance, and there's so much that students and families may or may not know about the impact around not attending school or attending school that we want to continue that focus as well.
All right, spell.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Isabella Moreno Ventura. I am currently a student in Centennial High School. I'm here to talk about student and parent perspectives and why it is critical to have our opinion be out there. This work is most meaningful when student and family voices are not only heard, but actively included in district decisions making. One of the key learnings from this year that has been the importance of creating authentic opportunities for students and parents to share their experiences, perspectives, and ideas. Their insights help and direct better understandings, barriers, strengths, and real impact for systems and practices on our school. We have talked about how students have had trouble with attendance, and how students have needed that help, but how we're showing that we want an input and how things go with our school. And we can tell that also parents want to be more part of the community to help understand what is going on, because they can hear something from a student and then they'll hear another thing from a teacher, but they want to also be involved.
Wanted to open it up for any questions that you may have, the board may have, or the superintendent may have. That concludes our report.
Board members, I see Jess's hand up, and I do want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. So Jess, would you start us off, please?
Yeah, great, thank you. It sounds like this group is up to some good work. One first question is about retainment of the team. Are the same people going to be on the team next year and the year after that, so we aren't having to catch up different people and fill gaps in attendance or amongst the team?
Well, we anticipate and expect that we will continue with our same team members. When we first selected students for this group, we tried to select students who could serve multiple years if possible, so we'd have some continuity. And to be very honest, we already have experienced a couple of folks who had unexpected conflicts and couldn't continue with the group. So in addition to what I've just shared, we're also planning on recruiting additional equity committee members, specifically to fill in some of the slots for folks like their community partners and our community members. Those were the folks who had conflicts who couldn't continue. So really still maintaining that interest in a representative group. So yeah, yes, and
my next question was about the attendance challenges that we're seeing at school level. What have you come up with ideas on or ways of remediating that process, or getting people in school, increasing our attendance numbers?
I'm happy to take this one. So we are still in the unpacking of the conversation because attendance has a lot of reasons why students aren't attending and or why they may not be staying in school as often as we want them. And so one of the big ahas a couple sessions ago, even from a couple of the students, when we had shared more research around attendance and the impact of not attending, we had several students who were like big-eyed and they were like, oh my goodness, that means I'm in the at-risk group. That means I'm not a regular attender. Wow, I wish I would have known this earlier. And so it was highlighting the need for us to continue to do more outreach and education sharing with students and parents, because there are reasons around misconceptions that, kindergarten isn't required in Oregon. So there's misconceptions around, should I send my kindergartner, even though kindergarten attendance has such an impact long-term. There are misconceptions when it comes to older students, like my grades are pretty good, so it doesn't matter if I don't attend. So we need to address those. We do have many students that have true barriers. And so thinking about Amanda as one of our social workers is here with us. And we do have a group that's dedicated to working with students and families that have really, really chronic absenteeism. So I think the short answer is we have more work to do. And the long answer is it's a group effort. And there are some very specific steps that we can continue to take to really help increase attendance. And having students share their perspective with us is definitely a way for us to target that piece as well.
And then I'll also share given the complexity that Denise has named around attendance, we realize the data that we do have and that we have shared so far, which we have looked at through various lenses and will continue to look at, may also not be enough data, right? So one of the possibilities that District Equity Advisory Committee can work on is how else do we gather more information to really understand some of the root causes or reasons why attendance may be dropping, waning, or not adequate in certain grade levels of the district, right? So the data we have, as comprehensive as it is perpetually and always inadequate, can't tell the whole story, right? So talked a little bit about other ways we could seek out information, things like listening sessions with students, motivational interviews, things like that, which might assist us in drafting advisory recommendations, right? So I don't know if Ella and Kaylani had an answer to that as well. You're welcome to unmute and share. No? Okay.
Director Lynn, did you have any questions?
Just I had heard from some members that some meetings were canceled. Is that accurate? And how many?
We had a couple meetings, to my recollection, that were canceled. One was due to a variety of conflicting district events. We did not know that some of the district events would be scheduled on top of our meetings. So I think actually it was during conferences. Some of our parents said they couldn't come because they were also attending conference. So we're working to avoid that next year. But yeah, we did cancel a couple of meetings. And I would say having meetings monthly, which we're getting into the technical weeds, but having meetings monthly may not be the best cadence. So we were, especially in the afternoon, evening. So we've been working with the committee to just determine if we continue with the cadence and the time that we have, or if it needs to be altered to accommodate people's schedules a little bit more. And we discussed that at our last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Vice Chair Mooring.
Thank you. Thank you so much to folks on the committee. It's a very needed and necessary work, and it's great to hear that we're working on the attendance piece. It's obviously a really hot button issue for us in the district, and you know, it's something that's going to take time, as been alluded to. But it sounds like we're making great progress to it, and I just want to emphasize that we continue, taking advantage of what the things that are working and doing them and looking for ways to just improve all around. But overall, really pleased to hear the report tonight and the progress that's being made. Thank you so much.
Director Newman.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. It sounds to me, I guess I have kind of like a two-parter question. It sounds to me like your focus primarily thus far has been identifying areas of focus, and attendance being a key one. Are there any other key areas of focus that you're looking at? And then have you started considering more opportunities to improve to improve on those?
I can answer, and then I'll invite other committee members to jump in. We started off with a broad, a pretty comprehensive data dive, which covers a really wide scope of possible work for the committee. And I'll also share that if you recall in that one slide where I had the green bars that sort of mapped out sort of the progressions of work, we're mindful that there's sometimes this feeling of urgency to take action right away. And there's a lot of research and evidence that shows if we rush into taking action and making recommendations before we truly understand the context and the issues, that sometimes our recommendations aren't sound, right? And so we've really intentionally, and sometimes maybe even frustratingly to our own committee, have slowed ourselves down so that we can really understand the issues. And just the comprehensive data dive, I don't even know that we could do it justice in 1.5 2-hour evening meetings once a month, right? So just going through the data itself was a task. And then really being mindful that whatever we may land on in terms of a focus for our work, that should be considered thoughtfully and carefully. And in order to do that, we really need to take the time to understand the situation as well as the district context. Otherwise, we could risk providing recommendations that are not sound. Right. So long answer to say we're mindful of that, and we're going at the pace that we feel supports equity work. And it is the intent of the committee to do more than look at data. Yeah, the committee is very determined to take action. So yeah.
Thanks, and I really do appreciate the intentionality going into it. So thank you.
Director Selesky.
I don't really have anything to add other than more appreciation for the work that you guys are doing. I know equity work is hard and slow, and I just appreciate you getting in there, and looking forward to hearing more from your committee as you progress.
Director Stanley included information in the chat, but oh, good.
I did. Sorry, this will be my last little quick comment, and then I'm about to go sing my heart out. So I hope I'm coming through. But all of these issues are the same issues across the state, right? Like they're everywhere. So I'm glad that we're starting, and I don't think we're going to be stopping these conversations anytime soon. So thank you to everybody who is taking the time to do it. And I'm sorry I have to leave early this evening. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Chair Shields. The question that I have, how does this, or does it dovetail with things like the portrait of a graduate or profile of a graduate? How are you incorporating just the idea of equity across all things? How do you relate it back to our strategic planning or our long-range facility planning or our portrait of a graduate, all of these other kind of things that are our umbrellas for the work that we do?
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to respond to that first and then invite other folks to jump in from the committee. So I think it is all very much connected and aligned. The committee actually looked at the profile of a graduate and all of the competencies. They had time to examine and look at and review the district improvement plan, which really guides and connects, or is basically school improvement plans as well, right? And so they looked at the equity audit that surfaced a lot of our issues around equity and access for our students, right? So that set the foundation and the framework for their continued learning about the district and started to steer us towards some of what we're considering as our priorities, right? So very, very much connected. And I would say if, for example, we end up selecting attendance as a priority or to focus on, that touches everything. Everything. I mean, that's foundational. If students aren't at school, they're not accessing, right? So I think that was one of the thoughts or the reasons or the rationale for selecting that. It seemed to be such a foundational component of providing students with educational experience that's high quality, so forth. So yeah, I mean, I think looking at our work already that we've done in around assessing equity and access in the district serve to guide the equity committee's work. So I don't know if Denise or Kealani or Isabella have anything they'd like to add.
I was going to say, Director Shields, as you started naming a couple pieces, you're identifying that one, equity work is interconnected in all the work that we do. And so trying to peel it off to connect with one area is hard because it's so interconnected to everything. And as our committee has had conversations, we've had lots of big conversations because it's like, what about this? And what about this? And what about having staff that represents the students? And what about having these experiences? And what about this? So sometimes it goes really, really big. And looking at Kalani nodding, often Kalani has brought us back to, okay, remember, the purpose of the committee are outlined in these few bullets. And so how is it that we do narrow our focus and what are those recommendations that we do make? Because we can't tackle everything. And what is one of those big leverage points that could make a really big difference? And so kind of our narrowing of thinking about the authentic partnerships with families and parents across the district, that has such huge implications because it impacts everything, as well as attendance. So I think that's why we're trying to narrow those, even though both of those are still really big.
And by selecting those two, I mean, we're able to really lean on or capitalize, whatever the phrase may be, our committee members, right? Their experiences that really provide information that inform our practices. So, yeah.
I will only add, I actually think in some ways, Denise and Tasha are being very nice. I'm sure at times it's like herding cats, because we're all really excited about the work and super passionate about it. And I think one of the things that you're seeing reflected in the time that it's taking is that there are so many perspectives to talk about. There's the parent perspective and the student's perspective, and there's multiple student perspective and multiple parent perspectives. And so when we're looking at the portrait of a graduate, I think we could all see pieces of the work. And then when we started looking at attendance data, there was so much to say and so much to listen to. And I think it's really important that we get those perspectives out there. And then along the way, I think a large part of this work is the relationship building that we do and the excitement that we have in the conversations and the turn and talks that we're doing in order to kind of, well, build relationships, but also surface what's important for us to be talking about and doing and looking at. How do we look at the data and then take that one step further? How is the parent perspective reflected in the data? How is it not? And I think all of that is taking probably more time than any of us expected, and then also ends up in that a little bit of a herding cats situation for Tasha and Denise.
Any other committee members like to speak to that?
I'm wondering, Isabella, is there anything else you want to add in? You had so many great points when we met last week.
Currently, I don't really have anything. I think everyone has pretty much put on the topic that I've thought about.
Thank you. I do have a follow-up, and I don't know that it's a question, but just a reflection. You were talking about the things that you have learned, but I'm interested in how that information gets out to our students and our community members. And our chief communication officer, Andrig, haha, you're here. How can even bullet points of information, especially as you mentioned, we keep talking about attendance, but the kindergarten and why it's important. I wouldn't know unless you pointed it out to me. Where do you point it out to me as either a community member or a parent? Those communications that we're already trying to establish to try to, get into deeper, I guess, not just realization, but just so people see that the district is communicating with them about a variety of issues. So I think that having our chief communications involved in taking that data that you are gathering and some of those bullet points and just saying the FAQs, right? Did you know? Did you know that the impact of a kindergartner attending school will do this? And I may not have a kindergartner, but my neighbor might have a kindergartner, right? And so those are the kinds of things that I know it's so hard to get out this information, but whatever we can do. And I know that Christine's been really good at doing that kind of work for us. And so just add more to her plate. I don't know what else, just poor girl. I'm sorry. But it just seems like, wow, I'd love for this information to be more broadly shared as you can. And that's it for me. I'm sorry. It's more of a comment rather than a question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think there's some potential in connecting with Christine and figuring out how we share out about the work of the equity committee. I appreciate that.
Any other questions before we say thank you to our advisory committee members who came out this evening to share with us? Nope, doesn't look like you're going to be put on the hot seat anymore. Thank you so much for being here this evening. You're more than welcome to stay with us, but you're also more than welcome to, continue on with your evening in a different way. So thank you again. All right, board members, what we're going to do is go to report 5.2, which is Immigration Response Work Group Update. And we have several people, I'm looking at the agenda here, who are going to speak to this tonight. Our Chief Communications Officer, Christine. As we've already mentioned, Denise, you're back on, Director Wright, on the hot seat again as well. And then Superintendent Owens, is there anything you'd like to say to kick this report off?
Thank you, Chair Shields. I would just keep my comments brief to say that this year required the district to respond to the broader uncertainty and concern related to immigration enforcement and its impact on students and families. And so in response, the district established a cross-functional work group. And tonight you're going to hear about what that work group has been working on and the products of their collaboration. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chief Andrigg and Director Wright and committee members to share with us.
And as Christine is bringing up the slides, I think this is a beautiful segue after sharing information about the District Equity Advisory Committee to go into some real-time experiences for families, students, and staff that have that equity piece just so embedded. So Christine, do we want to have the other folks just introduce themselves real quick and then you can kick it off?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great.
Sorry, I'm having technical issues.
Other members, if you can just pop yourself off real quick and introduce yourselves to the group.
Hi.
Oh,
I knew
go
it was
ahead.
gonna happen. I'm sorry. Sorry, Amanda. I'm Allie Marks. I'm the principal of Centennial Middle School.
I knew that was going to happen too. My name is Amanda. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a school social worker at Centennial.
Suzanne Cummings, Director of Transportation for Centennial School District.
All right. So as Superintendent Owens mentioned, tonight we are going to bring you information about the work of the work group specifically and kind of how that has helped us to refine our immigration response practices and just the work that that group has done since we came to you with this topic back in December. So for an overview of the group, we began meeting on January 23rd, 2026. Based on conversations that were happening in our district throughout the fall and into the winter, it was really clear that we just needed to bring together a representative group of stakeholders from across the district to come together and have the conversation about this topic in a very meaningful and well-rounded way where we could get different people with different lenses and perspectives to bring awareness to all of us for the needs that needed to be addressed and where we could make refinements or where we possibly had gaps that we needed to attend to more thoughtfully. So since that time, we've met 6 times. The group was made up of students, staff, including certified, classified, and administrators, and community partners. The initial meetings of the group really focused on getting the needs surfaced. So having all of the group come together and really identify what is the need, what is happening in our community, what are we hearing from our community, what are we seeing in our schools, and then from there, knowing that there is so many needs to address, we really worked to refine our priorities and action steps so that we could focus on what are the needs that are rising to the highest priorities and what things need our attention first so that we can really dial in and get some productive work done in the time that we had together. We also wanted to develop a shared understanding so that we could work really collaboratively with the same understandings and definitions of what our scope was. Denise, do you want to talk about the two small groups?
Sure. And mirroring off of what some other districts had done, we had different buckets of work, and the buckets of work naturally fit together. And so Christine helped to facilitate and work with the group that was focusing on the proactive staff training needs, as well as the safe and supportive schools aspect. And then myself and many others, Amanda included, focused on the social services, connections, and resources for families.
So as we first established this group, we wanted, again, building that shared understanding of what the scope was and what our role was as a group of representatives coming together in this. So one of those was just to increase awareness of district-wide and building level processes, resources, and systems. What we were hearing from our stakeholders in the fall and winter was that there was a lack of clarity around what are our processes, what are we doing in response, and making sure that within that group, we all understood that so that we could then take that awareness outside the group. We also wanted to focus on and understand actions that are within the control and legal ability of the district. There's a lot of things we would like to do, but that are just simply outside the scope of our district or outside of our legal capabilities. And so really focusing on the things that are actionable and can be done quickly and productively. We wanted to strengthen those existing processes as well. You know, we know that this work is changing as things in our community are changing, and we can't just sit on a process and trust that it's going to work if we're not constantly reviewing it and looking for ways it needs to expand or evolve in response to what's happening. And then also part of that is our internal and external communications around that. How are we making sure that that information is understood where it needs to be? Denise, can you speak to the last two?
You bet. Part of our time with the group was also developing shared working agreements. And so part of that had to do with if there was information occurring in a building that had to do with a family, how are we sharing that? If there were concerns coming up from staff in a different building, how could you bring that back to the group so that then we collectively could work on that versus different pockets of individuals across the district feeling like there wasn't a concerted effort. So we committed to, as a group, working through those things together. And then we also wanted to make sure that any of the work that we were doing was aligning with recommendations that, again, were in laws that were already in place, were in policies that we had as a district, and or existing practices. We didn't want to create new and different things if we had existing practices that we could, one, strengthen and or share out with more individuals so that more people were aware of something that we had in place that maybe they didn't know existed before.
So as we continued through the work, as Denise mentioned previously, we did divide the group into two smaller groups so that we could really dial in our focus and take action steps in a concentrated way. So the group that I worked most closely with was the proactive staff training and the safe and supportive schools group. Through this group, we identified kind of our top priority needs, as you can see here. One was we needed to clarify the response protocols that we had for activity on or near our campus. In addition, kind of parallel to that, one of the needs that arose within that was making sure staff also understood our existing safety protocols, including our standard response protocol, and how does that come into play if there's immigration enforcement activity on or near one of our campuses. And it became evident kind of through the discussions of the group that there was also a need to revisit standard response protocol and make sure staff were understanding how to implement those practices that were maybe being taken for granted that people already knew, and making sure, in fact, that they did. So those topics kind of became entwined through that conversation. We also wanted to identify gaps in staff training that were leading to some of that lack of understanding or inability to properly implement these practices, because these are some of our most important practices. Keeping our campuses safe, keeping our students and staff safe is the highest priority, and we needed to make sure that training was happening that was going to allow people to step into those protocols and use them effectively. And then also just refining communication steps, specifically, how are we notifying our stakeholders if immigration enforcement is happening on campus, near campus? And the tools that we use for that, is Parent Square effective for that? Do we need to look at other methods? So those were part of the needs that arose to the top of the list for that group.
And then with the other small group that focused on the social service connections and resources for families, areas that the group identified where there were big needs was thinking about, for our students and our families and staff, having spaces where they could share concerns, that they could relay needs, and they could also receive support. That was something that was occurring inconsistently or not everyone was aware. So that was identified as a need. Having a central place for specific information to be housed so that anyone could access it. Both having that space as well as making sure everyone was aware of that space was an identified need. And then there was a really big identified need around, how do we respond to situations? So if a family member or a student comes to someone in a school building and shares, someone in my family has been detained and or deported, how does a team within our building system, within our existing structures, respond for those students? So those were three big areas that our group identified as needs that we needed to work on.
So as we progress throughout our series of meetings, we achieved some of our outcomes and actions that we set out, or made significant progress along the way. So for our first small group, we did do a refinement of protocols. It wasn't a drastic change from the protocols that we had previously had in place, but what we did do for staff is create some role-specific or scenario-specific versions of protocols to make it easier for staff to not have to dig through deep documents with lots of links, but just to have simple charts or one-page kind of cheat sheets of, like, here's what you do in your role for this situation. Again, making it as easy as possible for staff to understand and use. We also updated our training protocols for both immigration response and standard response, and those are now combined into a single staff training. So that we can really have open discussions with staff about how those pieces work together. And throughout the last couple months, myself and our safety and security coordinator, Neil O'Donnell, have been visiting all of our schools, or are working through the list of our schools currently, I should say, to actually go and do those trainings in person so that staff would have an opportunity to ask questions, get clarification, and just receive kind of the full span of information in a much more kind of not one-on-one, but small group sort of way, versus like large group trainings or watching a video. That was an ask that came specifically from our immigration response work group to make sure staff had those opportunities to ask questions right there during the training. And then we implemented new staff text alerts. This is a new system for us that we were piloting over the last couple months. So far, it is working well. This allows us to reach staff much quicker when something is happening at a campus, to let them be responsive as possible. We refined our communications flowchart, so now we have clarity on making sure that we're able to get notifications out to our stakeholder groups as quickly as possible when an incident is occurring. And we are adding new community self-enrollment for notifications. And there is now updated language on our Immigration Resources website about our notifications process, and that people can now reach out to me to sign up for that. And we're going to continue to review that system and how we can make it more user-friendly going forward. And just to get some other perspectives besides just Denise and we do again have members of our group here. So one of the pieces around training that also came up was thinking about our bus drivers specifically. These are staff members who are out in our community, often by themselves or typically by themselves, with a bus full of students. And we wanted to make sure that our protocols also met their needs. So Suzanne and also our supervisor of transportation, Massimiliano Rusci, were also part of this group so that we could incorporate transportation into this planning. So Suzanne, would you want to talk to kind of some of the work we did specific to transportation?
Sure, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for all the great work you do every day to serve our students. There was some anxiety expressed at a cabinet work group in the fall. A lot of our bus drivers were very concerned about scenarios that, kind of fantasies or whatnot, that, how would they handle certain things. And I think they felt very heard and appreciative that this work took place and that transportation was a part of it. So between the cabinet work group in the fall and the cabinet work group in the spring, we were able to show them a lot of great work and that their voices were heard. As Christine mentioned, sometimes bus drivers feel vulnerable. Transitions are delicate times. And, talking about attendance, sometimes bus drivers see and hear things that students are experiencing, live directly. And so having a nice protocol that takes our standard response protocols and what does it look like on a bus, and really helping them realize that they actually do have tools and they are connected to the greater community and that they're a really fundamental and important part of the process. It's been a joy. It's been great to be a part of it and to bring that lens and what does transportation, how do we support the students? How do we keep them safe? We have had already 2 incidents where we did need to implement our response. And one was a false alarm and worked extremely well. And one was not a false alarm. And a student was concerned about their stop and congregation of unknown vehicles at their home, and we were able to bypass their stop and keep them safe and make sure they were reunited with their family. So thanks again.
Thanks, Suzanne. And then just also speaking on the topic of staff training, Allie Marks is here. She is the principal at CMS, which is one of the first schools that we implemented this new training protocol at. And so Allie, I'm wondering if you can speak to how this training looked and felt for you and your staff at the school.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, especially to speak on such an important topic. In the fall, one important learning at CMS was that while our office team understood our immigration response plan, that understanding was not shared broadly with our staff and our students. And at that time, we also recognized that how we communicated information mattered, and we wanted people to feel prepared and to know that there was a plan. And we also didn't want to unintentionally increase anxiety or fear. So a significant step forward for our building was when we did have Christine and Neil O'Donnell come and present their new training. It was on April 22nd that we did this. And their training addressed standard response protocol and helped clarify how our immigration response is integrated with standard response protocol, aligned to standard response protocol, and really, if there were some sort of concern with immigration, we would follow safety practices that our staff already know. And I think that that connection was important because it helped our staff see that this work is not separate, it's not unfamiliar, but it's part of our broader commitment to make sure that our schools are safe and supportive and that we're prepared. The value of the work group specifically has been bringing district leaders, building staff, students, and community partners together to identify gaps like what we were experiencing at CMS. And I think together we learned that staff need to understand the response protocols, our families need clear and accessible information, and students need to experience school as a place where adults are calm, prepared, and supportive. And so ultimately, I believe that the training that was created and the work that we did more holistically as this group helped us build readiness and trust. And I think that's what the goal was.
Thanks, Sally. And with that, I will turn it over to Denise for the second group.
Fantastic. And Amanda is going to share some highlights of several of the things that came out as outcomes and actions related to the social service connections and resources for families. Specifically, she'll be speaking to the affinity spaces that have been created both for students and staff, talking about Know Your Rights trainings and emergency preparedness. So take it away, Amanda.
Hi, thanks for inviting me to share about the work that we've been doing. So yeah, kind of following back on what Allie and Christina have shared is like the intention was to not create more anxiety and fear during these times that are so uncertain, but really trying to meet people where they're at. So that goes along with the affinity spaces that we created. Some of our schools reached out about their particular needs and the concerns that their students were sharing, which opened up the opportunity to provide affinity-led spaces by staff who identify as Latino or Latino. And so I think that's been really helpful for students. We have those going on at, I think, oh gosh, like 4 schools, Denise, right? And then the staff piece too. So one of our other social workers, Grace, has been supporting a space for staff that brings in culturally specific practices. So staff are able to heal together in a group and process in a group, as well as bring what they learn to families. And that's been in partnership with some really great folks at MESD. There was also an opportunity this year. We had more across district collaboration around an opportunity for families to learn about emergency preparedness in case of a detainment. So families were able to get the skills on learning how to fill out these forms and get access to notaries and a space for them to ask questions. And the intention is that that work will also continue next year as well.
Great. And in addition to those pieces, the website has been updated. We had information there that's accessible for families, but it's been updated and reorganized. And we will be sharing out some reminders to staff. And so we've recognized that making sure that all of our staff know where this information is on the website can be really helpful, because if a family comes to them with a concern, staff members can say, great, let's pull up some resources. Let's talk through what's available. And then we also had built out our urgent response that's a part of our tier 3 existing processes. So with our multi-tiered systems of support, tier 1 is really supporting all students, tier 2 supports some students, and tier 3 is looked at supporting individual students who have intensive needs. And so from that, we expanded it for students and families that have urgent needs. So the urgent needs might come from a family member being detained or deported, or it might come from a family member who has had their house catch on fire or another tragedy. And so we wanted to recognize that for some students, there are urgencies that occur in their families and for themselves that we need teams to take steps right away for. And so this has been a document that we've shared with our school counselors, our social workers, our school psychs, and our building administrators. And through this process of having the work group, we were able to refine some things in real time. We had the document set up one way and had kind of a flow. And then there was something that happened at Centennial High School, and it made us rethink, like, why would we add these extra steps? Because if we would have done that in this situation, it would have added, a couple more days in delay and or added people that didn't need to be involved. And so I think for all of these processes across both groups, we've had real-time situations that we could use out some of these things and come back and debrief and fine tune them. And then Amanda and a group are working with some Know Your Rights opportunities that will be shared with some more students, and then figuring out some plans for that for next year as well.
Okay, so this, like I mentioned earlier, this is ongoing work that will continue to evolve as we go. The work group will be pausing for the summer, as many of our members are not working during the summer months. But we have already kind of set up for ourselves the list of where do we pick this work back up and get right back to it when we all return in the fall. I will be continuing to work with Neil over the summer to talk about these the training model that we've now put in place. How do we keep it moving forward? How do we integrate it into annual training so that it just becomes part of the staff norms, not only at the beginning of the year during pre-service for like refresher trainings, but also if new staff come in the middle of the year, how do we tend to that need? So we'll be working on some tools and resources to make that really accessible for staff. And then we're going to continue to develop our public facing website and resources, as well as staff resources on the intranet with some of those urgent response documents and things that staff would need quick access to. And this will be paired also with updated communications for both staff and families pretty soon. We really wanted to secure that we had our internal structures in place, and now we are at the point where we're ready to explain them in more detail and help broaden that understanding externally. And then Denise, I will let you take the next one.
Yep. Exactly. And then we do have additional things that we want to put in place going into the next year. And as a part of that, the work group talked about coming together in right before either pre-service or right as a part of pre-service to really think through what has changed over the summer. How can we be more responsive? Because as times have changed so quickly, we want to make sure that we're ahead of that. And who knows what will come our way. And so hopefully we can just build on what's in place and we won't have to make some extreme shifts, but you never know. We'll be prepared for it.
The other piece we really wanted to do is we know that there's been some new legislation that has come online while this work group was meeting, specifically House Bill 4079, which relates to district responsibility to provide notification of immigration enforcement activity on campus, as well as Senate Bill 1538, which does some cleanup from some of the existing policies and ORSs related to warrant validation and some of those legal response measures. And I am happy to share with the work that we've done around this in this work group. We are on track to be in full compliance with House Bill 4079 well before the September implementation deadline. So we are in really good shape there. And then you as the board will see some updated policy language coming probably in the coming months related to these two pieces of legislation so that we can continue to solidify this work, not just internally, but as a district as a whole. And then we're going to continue to offer the emergency preparedness and know your rights training going forward. These are valuable resources for our impacted community, and we really want to be a source of those resources where they can access and provide those in a safe way that meets a variety of needs. And as Denise mentioned, we are going to get back together at the start of next year to look for adjustments. And with that, are there any questions?
Let's go through our list to make sure that we have everybody have an opportunity and see. Let's start with you. One more person down the list, Director Lynn.
No questions tonight. Thank you.
Vice Chair Moring.
Thank you. Thank you. So just a couple of questions, but I wanted to express my gratitude for the working group on this. This is a complex challenge for everybody all over the place. And it feels like you all have done a really good job of boiling it down to actionable items, and the work does not go unnoticed. And I thank you for this detailed report tonight. It's very helpful to know what we're doing to respond to the things that are happening and continue to happen, although they may not be as in the forefront of the media right now. We know that some of that has not completely subsided in our communities. A couple of quick questions. Thank you for addressing the legislative alignment with the recent House bill and Senate bill. There were a couple of pieces Chief Hendrick, I think you mostly touched on with communication with the self-enrollment and just some other items that we're doing. And so my biggest piece on that is what are we doing to make sure the information gets out to the people who are most impacted, who may not always be the most digitally connected? And then there was some discussion of staff readiness gaps. And I just wanted to see if we had an assessment in place for how it's being rolled out, across all the buildings, and that the protocol and the trainings are being done consistently for everybody. Because I think that's probably key to making sure that this work is, successful for years to come.
Absolutely. So I'll take those in two parts because I think I heard two questions in there. So in terms of communication, I think unfortunately the reality is outside of digital access, there's very few options we have in terms of timely messaging. So thinking about initial alerts, we have with our Parent Square platform, we have the ability to do emails, text messages, and voicemails. And right now we now have that capability for staff, families, staff and families. unless someone has actively opted out. And so we are able to, and I can say right now, I believe we're somewhere about 98 to 99% contactability for all students in the district having at least one adult through Parent Square that we're able to contact. Whether or not people are reading those messages, we'd have to run deeper analytics, but we do have at least one active email, phone number, or app user for all students in the district. Up to 98%, I believe, is the total. So we actually have a really high rate of contactability overall as a district. In terms of broader community, again, it's very tricky, and that's why we're trying to implement this self-enrollment option where people can reach out and choose to elect to get notifications. We're going to be continuing to refine that because our tool is not really set up for people outside of staff and family. So we're kind of leveraging the tool we have as best we can. We do also have a key communicators emailing list, but that is not the most timely way to get information. So we can continue to do broader outreach in terms of the specific notifications, but it's a district challenge for every district in terms of communications is we only have so many mediums to reach people where they're at if we cannot connect with them through email, text, or phone. And so we're continuing to explore other options, but it's always a challenge. And the second question was in terms of, I believe, staff accountability for participation in trainings.
I think Amanda wanted to maybe weigh in on that.
Oh,
response as
fantastic.
well,
Oh,
but
yeah. I just wanted to say real quick, Will, that I really appreciate that question because, right, our district is so diverse and we have so many languages. But Christine, I think you helped our amazing colleague Jimena with this, but she's our culturally specific liaison, and she did a training specifically for Spanish speakers on knowing how to use the communication apps. I always get Parent Square and the other one confused, but she did amazing work on turning all that information that's in English into Spanish, and then did the hands-on one-on-one support for families to get it on their phones, to know how to access these apps. And I think that work will also continue next year because she did that. I think she was targeting the transition 8th to ninth grade parents. So we're working on getting more, making sure our Spanish speaking and other non-English speaking families know how to use these systems.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. I said I know it's a complex thing, and we're making good progress on it. Just the continued focus, I think, making sure that we're doing everything we can is the important piece.
Yeah,
And thank you again.
I will add, because Amanda's comment sparked my memory of this, so thank you for that, Amanda. We also do still have multiple members of the team that are meeting with like regional meetings, and some of that is with community partners in different aspects and things as well. So we are also providing updates to a variety of partners and other districts across the region, and that does actually help as well get the word out because sometimes those community partners have connections with families beyond what we have. And so that is another avenue that I did overlook in my original response. So second question, talking about staff training. Right now, because this training change is so recent, we're just doing the best we can to get to as many school staffs as we can between now and the end of the year to get the information updated kind of as an initial update. It's a challenge this time of year to get extra time in staff meetings when people have had those mapped out. But I will say we have completed in-person trainings for staff at 5 of our schools, with a 6th one scheduled, I believe, next week or the week after. I don't know that we're going to get to every school between now and the end of the year. So one of the things we're doing is we're doing also a voiceover scripted version of the slide deck that will be shared out with any staff who weren't able to attend one of those initial update trainings this year. Going into next year, this will become part of our annual training, and that's part of the work we have ahead of us this summer is how do we create an accountability system so that we are able to track who's taken the training, who hasn't, who do we need to connect with, and how are we connecting with onboarding new staff to make sure no one slips through those cracks going forward.
Thank you.
Director Newman.
Sorry, it took me a little bit there to find my mouse. Like Vice Chair Mooring, I really appreciate the work and the effort that you all put in. When I think about where this conversation started, and I believe it was the December board meeting to now. And I know there are a lot of questions from us too. It's really great to see a lot of that really implemented and a big change to where we were. So I don't really have any particular questions, but I just want to acknowledge that and really appreciate, especially looking at some of the training and bringing in these sort of this mix of procedures into a distinct workflow that is maybe ideally a little bit easier to follow than, oh, well, we go from immigration policy to other workflows in certain scenarios. Just to have it all in one place sounds great. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing the continued evolution of the immigration resources page on the website.
Thank you. Director Solosky? Where are you, Director Solosky? Oh, I don't see her on my screen. Director Harden?
I want to thank you all for your sense of urgency in this matter and prioritization with it. You guys, I'm impressed. It seems like you guys have made a lot of progress in a short time, and I want to thank you all for that. Seeing the overview and the outcomes and needs, and then what is the ongoing work and implementation, seeing that in this presentation, I really appreciated that, and seeing how what we can expect moving forward out of the group. My question is similar to the equity group, equity access group. Is the team going to be intact next year? Are there holes to fill? Is it going to be the same people progressing with the same work and next year and years moving forward?
A great question. I will say, and Denise, jump in at any point, we did start with a significantly larger group at the beginning of this work than we ended up with more recently. And for a variety of reasons, I think we kind of got dialed, as we identified specific action steps, we got dialed down to a smaller, more nimble group that was really taking those action steps forward. When we come together in the fall, my expectation would be that we will extend the invitation to all members of the original group to rejoin us. And then once we get through our first meeting, kind of reassess, like, are there spots that need to be filled? Are there more spaces that we can extend invitations to based on the next phases of work? And who are the people closest to that work that really need to have their voices at the table? And Denise, feel free to add anything I missed.
Yeah, in addition to that, we didn't have any parents on this group, and that was one of the conversations we had with the students because we had multiple high school students joining us. So it was like, do we need to bring your parents in? Are there different perspectives they have than you have? And so they all felt like they were able to share the concerns that were coming up and what needed to be addressed. But that would continue to be an area that we would want to reconsider, is just after we've implemented and updated these things, are there still things that parents aren't knowing about or hearing about that we do need to take into consideration? So that would be an area that we may need to add some more people to the group around.
Thank you so much.
Director Solosky had a computer issue, so she might have other questions. If she does, I know she knows how to get a hold of you. Any other questions from directors? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, committee members and our staff who've been helping with this. As Director Newman said, you've come a super long way from the very beginning. It's impressive what your work you've done at your individual areas and the individual needs, and how you have represented your constituent group within the structure of the committee. It's very much appreciated, the extra efforts that you've been putting out for not just the students, but I think the community as a whole, to make people feel safer in this extraordinary time that we've experienced, and how tough it's been for everyone, right? And the acknowledgement and hearing about it, goes a long way. So much appreciated from all of you tonight. That being said, though, if we're done with this report this evening, and you're absolutely free to go with our appreciation for staying with us this evening, and we'll probably see you again at a different time, maybe more information at a report later on. Thank you again tonight. Board members, do you have the stamina to have one more report? To kind of where to go? All right. Then, and Rose is back with us. So yay. So Superintendent Owens, there's a year-end report that we're looking forward to have from you.
All right. Thank you, Chair Shields. I believe that you're able to see the report. Good evening, board directors. It's my pleasure and privilege to share with you a recap of the 25-26 school year as a reflection of our shared progress during year 3 of Roadmap 27. Last year, I shared with the board that we were beginning to move from the development of systems and structures into deeper implementation work as outlined in Roadmap 27. As I reflect on the school year, I believe that continued to be true. Across the district, we saw increasing consistency in many of the systems, routines, and improvement efforts we have been working to establish over the past several years. At the same time, I believe this year also reinforced an important reality that this work takes time. Sustained improvement requires focus, consistency, refinement, and a willingness to stay with the work long enough for it to truly take hold. Throughout the year, our principals and our school teams have continued sharing examples of classroom learning, student growth, and school-based improvement efforts through their presentations to the board and strategic plan updates. My role in much of the work I will reflect on tonight is often centered more on the organizational conditions that support the work district-wide, the systems, structures, planning processes, collaboration, and long-term alignment intended to support improved outcomes over time. So this evening, I want to spend some time reflecting on several major threads of work across the district this year, including our continued instructional systems work, organizational alignment, and leadership development efforts, long-range facilities planning work, and several of the major areas I believe will help shape the district's focus moving forward into the 26-27 school year. As we continued implementing Roadmap 27 this year, one of the clearest areas of continued development was our work around continuous improvement systems and instructional coherence across the district. Much of this work centered around creating more consistent structures for teams to collaboratively reflect on practice, analyze student information, refine instruction, and align improvement efforts across schools. One of the primary vehicles for this work continued to be our trimester data summit process. Throughout the year, representative leadership teams from each school came together to review student outcome data, identify trends, reflect on instructional practices, and engage in collaborative planning connected to their school improvement plans and Roadmap 27 priorities. This year also marked an important transition in that work as the district shifted from contracted facilitation support through Performance Fact toward increased internal planning and facilitation of the process by district staff. This year, we also differentiated and expanded portions of this work at Centennial High School through the development of a dedicated 9th and 10th grade data summit series focused specifically on core academic areas and early high school success indicators. This allowed high school teams to engage in more targeted analysis and planning connected to attendance, grades, instructional practices, and student supports during a critical transition period for students. At the elementary level, Grade level teams from across all 6 schools participated in a series of coordinated standards mapping and curriculum alignment sessions throughout the year. Teachers worked collaboratively to align pacing, identify critical and focal standards, clarify learning targets, and strengthen shared understanding around what proficiency looks like for students. This work also helps strengthen consistency and coherence across schools while reinforcing the connection between standards, curriculum, assessment, and instructional planning. Much of this work was also directly connected to the district's continued focus on literacy within Roadmap 27, including efforts to strengthen instructional consistency, collaborative lesson design, and mastery of critical literacy standards across our schools. Similarly, our professional learning community and MTSS work continued to mature throughout the year. Increasingly, teams are using collaborative planning time, data summits, attendance review processes, and intervention systems in a more coordinated way to support students academically, behaviorally, and socially. Another significant thread throughout the year was our equity-focused professional learning partnership with WestEd. Staff from every school participated in a year-long series designed to strengthen Tier 1 equity teams and support the translation of the district's equity commitments into building-level professional learning and classroom practice. Across the series, teams engaged in work connected to high expectations, classroom discourse, culturally responsive instructional practices, belonging, and the social conditions necessary for collaborative learning environments. The work also supported the development of ongoing building-based professional learning structures that schools will continue carrying forward. As was just mentioned in the previous report, this year also required the district to respond to broader uncertainty and concern related to immigration enforcement and its impact on students and families. In response, the district established a cross-functional work group involving students, staff, administrators, and community partners focused on strengthening district response systems, staff training, communication protocols, and family supports related to immigration concerns. Throughout the year, this work included refinement of response protocols, the staff training, communications planning, resource development, and the coordination of supports intended to help ensure schools remain safe, predictable, and supportive environments for students and families. While much of this work occurred operationally behind the scenes, it nevertheless required significant coordination, communication, and responsiveness across the organization during the school year. Throughout the year, the board also heard directly from several elementary schools regarding how Roadmap 27 priorities are increasingly translating into school-level practices and student experiences. Whether through literacy-focused instructional work, belonging and attendance efforts, collaborative planning structures, or opportunities for student voice and engagement, these presentations helped illustrate how broader district systems work is beginning to take shape within classrooms and school communities across the district. Across the year, schools highlighted examples connected to early literacy, attendance, belonging, collaborative PLC work, and expanded opportunities for student engagement and voice. As I reflect on the work collectively, one of the things that stands out the most is the amount of intentional, connected implementation work occurring across the organization. Increasingly, these efforts are becoming more integrated into the ongoing routines, the planning structures, the collaboration processes, and instructional practices of the district, rather than existing as isolated initiatives or standalone events. In many ways, this work centered less on launching entirely new initiatives and more on deepening implementation, strengthening collaborative structures, and increasingly moving this work from externally supported efforts towards internally sustained practice. While we still have important work ahead of us, I believe this continued refinement and internalization of systems work remains essential to improving outcomes for students over time. One significant example of this was our continued implementation of the profile of a Centennial graduate, particularly through this year's pilot work connected to the academically prepared competency. Throughout this year, teacher leaders and administrators from across the district participated in a series of profile of a Centennial graduate pilot leader work sessions focused on developing authentic learning experiences, strengthening instructional rigor, developing common understandings around the evidence of learning, and creating opportunities for student reflection and demonstration of learning. As part of this process, participating staff work collaboratively to test ideas, reflect on implementation, refine instructional practices, and help identify what supports are necessary for future scaling of the work. This culminated in the development of student summits at both the elementary and secondary levels, where students demonstrated learning connected to the profile of a Centennial graduate competencies through presentations, exhibitions, reflection, and dialogue with authentic audiences. These are photos of last week's elementary student summit, and the secondary student summit will be held tomorrow. One of the things I appreciated about this work is that it moved beyond simply asking students to complete projects or presentations. Instead, the emphasis increasingly centered on students being able to explain their thinking, reflect on their learning, articulate evidence of growth, and communicate why their learning matters. I believe that represents an important shift in how we think about student engagement, ownership, and demonstration of learning over time. Another important organizational development this year, and as was reflected in an early report, was the launch of the District Equity Advisory Committee. This committee brings together students, families, staff, and community members to help inform the district practices and provide additional perspectives regarding barriers, opportunities, and student experiences across the system. This work aligns with the broader efforts throughout the year to strengthen student voice, family partnership, and inclusive decision-making processes connected to Roadmap 27 implementation. In addition to the work occurring within schools, we also continued efforts to strengthen alignment between Roadmap 27 and broader district planning and improvement processes. Throughout the year, district departments continued refining department-level priorities and identifying connections between their work and the district strategic plan, helping reinforce that implementation of Roadmap 27 extends beyond classroom instruction alone and also involves the systems and organizational supports that help schools function effectively every day. This year also included the launch of the district's long-range facilities planning process in partnership with DLR Group. Throughout the year, this work included department-level interviews, staff listening sessions, school site reviews, educational alignment conversations, facility condition analysis, and the development of planning structures intended to support broader stakeholder engagement. As part of the long-range facilities planning process, this spring, the district launched the Facilities Advisory Committee, bringing together parents, students, staff, union representatives, administrators, community partners, board participation, and facilitation support from DLR Group and district leadership. Through the first 3 committee meetings, participants examined long-term facility conditions, enrollment trends, educational adequacy considerations, safety and security needs, equitable access to programs and services, modernization priorities, and alignment between future facility investments and the district's instructional vision. One thing I appreciated about this process is that the conversation has consistently remained grounded in educational programming and student experience rather than simply the buildings themselves. Throughout the process, participants have explored how learning environments either support or constrain the types of experiences we want for students, including conversations over flexible learning spaces, accessibility, career and technical education opportunities, student belonging, safety, and community-centered spaces. Meanwhile, the district has also continued investing in facility improvements and capital stewardship projects across schools. This has included continuing seismic improvements at Oliver Middle School, classroom and learning space renovations at Park Lane, a brand new playground at Powell Butte, fresh paint in libraries, gyms, cafeterias, and other common areas throughout the district, as well as continued HVAC modernization through the PSEF funding partnerships. Additional projects are also scheduled for summer 26 as the district continues reinvesting in learning environments and facility conditions across the system. These include classroom and HVAC upgrades at Powell Butte Elementary and the renovation of the Centennial Middle School playground. This year also included a significant bargaining process with CEA that required substantial time, coordination, communication, and organizational attention throughout the school year. I appreciate the continued efforts of both bargaining teams to engage in the work and ultimately reach agreement Taken together, I believe these efforts continued strengthening the district's ability to sustain improvement work over time. While there's still substantial work ahead of us, I believe that we are increasingly seeing stronger internal systems, clearer alignment between district priorities and school level implementation, and continued commitment to the long-term work necessary to support students across Centennial School District. So where are we going? As we look ahead to the 26-27 school year, I believe several major areas of work will continue shaping the district's focus and direction. In many ways, next year represents both a continuation of important work already underway and an opportunity to reflect on where the district is headed moving forward. First, next year will represent, believe it or not, year 4 of Roadmap 27 implementation. I believe it is important that we continue maintaining focus and discipline around the priorities already underway rather than prematurely shifting directions. Much of next year's work will continue centering on refining and strengthening systems and practices already underway. Next year also represents an opportunity to begin re-engaging the Centennial community in reflection and future planning conversations regarding what comes after Roadmap 27. While Roadmap 27 remains a comprehensive plan with significant work still underway, next year will allow the district to begin gathering feedback and reflecting on progress, priorities, and future direction. As I shared previously with the board, I anticipate this process taking a somewhat lighter touch approach than the extensive consultant-supported process that we used several years ago to develop Roadmap 27 and conduct the district's equity audit. We also intend to align this work with the state of Oregon's integrated guidance and aligning for student success planning requirements as part of a coordinated organizational planning process moving forward. Another primary area of focus next year will be the continuation of the district's long-range facilities planning process. Following the initial work completed this spring, the Facilities Advisory Committee will reconvene in the fall alongside additional community engagement opportunities as the district continues working toward development of a long-range facilities plan for future board consideration. I believe this work represents an important opportunity to continue reflecting on how our learning environments support the educational experiences that we want for our students over time. Next year will also include the beginning of another bargaining cycle with OSEA. As with all major organizational work, we will continue approaching the process thoughtfully and with focus on supporting students, staff, and stable organizational systems over time. Finally, the coming year will mark the 50th anniversary of the Centennial School District. I think that milestone will naturally create opportunities to reflect on the district's history, the work currently underway across the organization, and the future direction of the district as we continue planning ahead. This summer, we will begin planning ways to honor the past, highlight the present, and envision the future of our district as we celebrate this important anniversary. We're fortunate to have a community filled with families, alumni, staff, and community members who support our students in their learning. Our 50th anniversary provides an opportunity to bring our whole community together, and I look forward to bringing you more information about what opportunities for engagement and celebration look like in the coming year. As I reflect on the year, I continue to come back to the idea that meaningful improvement work is often less dramatic than some people sometimes expect. Much of it involves sustained effort, collaboration, refinement, problem solving, and a willingness to continue working through challenges over time. This year, I believe we saw that work occurring across our schools, departments, leadership teams, classrooms, and community partnerships in many different ways. While there's certainly still important work ahead of us, I also believe this year demonstrated a continued commitment from staff across the organization to supporting students, strengthening their practice, and continuing to move the district forward in thoughtful and intentional ways. I appreciate the continued partnership of our board, staff, students, families, and community as we continue that work together. It's my privilege to serve Centennial School District, and I remain grateful for the opportunity to support this work alongside so many dedicated people across the organization. It's been my pleasure to feature this work. I'm happy to address any questions the board may have, and that concludes my superintendent's year-end report.
Thank you. So, board members, let's start with Vice Chair Mooring, if you're there.
I am here. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Superintendent Owens. I appreciate the detailed report as always. I will sit and reflect on it and follow up with any questions.
Thank you. Director Newman.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I don't have any questions, but since it is a year-end report, I would just like to express my appreciation for your leadership this year. Thank you.
Director Selesky.
Yes, thank you. I'm on my phone, so I apologize for not having my camera. I am just, after hearing all this, I'm just so proud of the district, and I continue to be proud of the work that we're doing. I had a couple of things with Roadmap 27 for next year. We talked about revisiting it potentially with a bit of a lighter touch. And I would encourage us to still continue to do some stakeholder engagement, especially with the Diversity Equity Committee and some of these other work groups and things that we've brought together. I think that bringing those groups together then on the strategic plan as it moves forward would be really thoughtful. And I'm not suggesting that you were saying no stakeholder engagement, but I just know lighter touch. I think agreed we can do it ourselves. We don't necessarily need a big group. But yeah, I'm really excited for next year. I will also just throw it out there that I turn 50 next year, and I'm going to own it. So me and Centennial and the last Trailblazers championship. Thank you, James. That was a great report.
Wow, thank you for that, Director Selesky. That extra little information we're going to be able to act on next year. This will be good. Director Harden.
No questions. Thanks again for the report. When you laid out like this, there's a lot of work going on, and I hope it has great results for our students. Hope it leads to positive impacts for them.
Director Lynn.
No questions. Thank you.
Chair Shields. It's just amazing to see when it's all laid out, as many of you as directors have already mentioned. A lot to reflect on, and again, send the slide deck one more time to us because we're going to need it as a reference of all of the kinds of things that we've been accomplishing, because I think it's also important for us as board members to reflect on the work that we've been doing, and we'll be talking about board evaluation and how we participate in what your leadership is. So it's important for us to have that slide deck readily available. So board members, we'll need to take a short break, but I think we could just, unless there's some reason not to, can I have a motion to to, what's the wording I want to use? Motion to confirm the list of confirmation items as listed. Something like that.
Motion to approve the confirmation items as listed.
Do you have a
Second.
second? Oh, great. I've got the motioner and the second. Any discussion on any of the confirmation items? Not hearing any. We'll take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of approving the confirmation items as presented, indicate by saying aye and showing me your hand if you're on camera.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody not voting?
I'm an
on
aye.
this?
Sorry.
You're an aye. Gotcha. All right.
Couldn't
I
get
think
my
we have
unmute.
I think we've got everybody. Thank you so much. All right, let's take how are we doing on time, guys? It's getting to be, we're having a little bit longer meeting. You want 5 or 10? Show of hands. 5? Can we do it in 5? All right, we'll see you in 5. And 5 minutes goes fast. Really fast. Woo. All righty. Want to make sure I have a quorum before I get us back. I see Michael, I see Jess, I see me, I see Rose, I see Will. I don't see Director Lynn. There I see you. The gallery keeps moving around, so I never know who I'm looking at. Oh, now I've got everybody. Thank you, everyone. Ooh, you guys are really good at coming back. So we're in section 7, our board action items, and our first is old business, which is our second read of the policy with the option to adopt it this evening for evaluation of board operational procedures. And these are committees of the superintendent. And so there's a facilitator, and I see Director Newman's name as the facilitator this evening for this particular topic, or whoever else is on your committee, however you are organizing it. It's now for you to present.
All right. I will share the screen and I'll introduce what the changes we made after your feedback last time. Make sure I'm sharing the right window. Hopefully you all see my screen. And it should be evaluation of board operational procedures. Do you all see that? All right. I'll share, and then Director Morgan, if you have anything to add, please do so. So we took your feedback from last month when we shared this, which we had largely gone with OSBA's language last month, which was very vague, very open-ended, I'll say, about operational procedures, about really board self-evaluation or board evaluation. And I think that the feedback that we got back was you wanted a little bit more. So we still wanted to maintain, sorry, I'm trying to, as soon as I went to share, I lost most of my Zoom window, trying to get that back while I'm talking to you. We still wanted to maintain a fair amount of flexibility, but at the same time listening to a lot of your concerns and questions and just wanting to have a little bit better definition of the purpose of the evaluation, as well as kind of who's going to be responsible for kicking it off. So we see here the current wording. It is about 5 sentences. We do have some of the what we presented last time is in the part of it is in this gray highlighted, and then the completely crossed out section. This is actually the current policy that was adopted in September of 2013. So we put in we made a few adjustments here. So first of all, we still are just talking about the purpose, the first line about the purpose of why do we, well, acknowledgement of who we are, and then a purpose of why to really the improvement of board. We changed from leadership to governance just to identify. We're talking about all of us as members of the board, not just board leadership could be interpreted as being our chair and vice chair. The old version was very prescriptive about exactly what the evaluation is going to be, and we still wanted to walk back on that and be a little more, allow a little more freedom and a little more flexibility for how we're actually going to conduct an evaluation. the board will plan an annual evaluation of its board based on the operating agreements. And that was a key thing we added to give us a framework around which we're going to evaluate ourselves. And then board leadership will facilitate evaluation timeline and process. So this time when we are talking about board leadership, we are specifically referring to the chair and vice chair will facilitate evaluation and timeline and process, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily conducting the evaluation, but hey, we're going to do an evaluation in May, for example. We're going to kick it off May or June. And some of our thinking around this, as we were discussing as far as proposed timelines, would be to conduct an evaluation as early as this year and have the results of our evaluation to discuss at our board retreat in the summer. While I'm here, I figured I would at least just pull up the board operating agreement. So these would be kind of the foundation. We didn't say we're going to evaluate ourselves in all 15 agreements, but again, letting these be sort of the guiding principles. How are we aligning to the operating agreements? And again, we talk about these during the summer retreat. We have a little bit more. We've done some evaluation before we even come into the conversation. I will point out that we even have as one of our operating agreements that we'll periodically review our own performance. So I thought that was an interesting parity going back and forth between our operating agreements and the board evaluation. So Vice Chair Moran, do you have anything to add before we open up for questions, comments?
No, I think you did a good job of summarizing that. We took in the feedback from folks, and hopefully this reflects what we were answers the questions and reflects better about what the intentions of our committee are.
Thank you. Let's open it up to questions. Starting again, I'm just trying to rotate through us. Director Solowski, do you have any questions?
I just want to thank you guys for the work that you put into this and the thought that you put into this. It shows that you were listening to what we were talking about, and I think this is great. I think that what this allows is just that little bit of flexibility, because we never know what is going to happen. We, God forbid, have another COVID year or some big thing that, like, if we don't have the time as a board to review ourselves, it's important, and yes, we should do it. But like, there are times when our time is so limited that, like, this gives us that flexibility of, like, if the board leadership says that we have, what do we have the time for? Let's do that. I think that's great. So thank you. Good work.
Director Harden.
Great job. You know, I really like the improvements or adjustments, I should say. You know, who, when, what, without having a specific date and time, but still, you know, who is doing what and how often, when those kinds of questions are answered. And really appreciate your effort in that. Thank you.
Director Lynn.
No questions. Thank you.
Chair Shields. Oh, you know I've got questions. Second paragraph, the primary purpose of this assessment is the improvement of board governance. Governance of what? Ourselves, district, governance. Because governance to me actually still meant leadership. So that was my, especially when it's capitalized. So that sentence is not as complete as I'd like it to be. But I'm
actually just noticing that it's a comma at the end, so it's not really a sentence anyway.
If you have some ideas of the primary purpose of this assessment is the improvement of board operations, board governance. What does that? I don't understand what the definition of governance is as it relates to
The general concept of board governance refers to systems, processes, and policies that guide our board of directors. That is kind of what the general concept of board governance is.
I love those words, Will, because those words mean something to me.
Yeah.
So if
I
it said
mean,
board systems operate, and just the words that you use to help describe it to me, it's like, oh, I get it now.
totally. Well, and further down too, the annual evaluation will its functions is based on the operating agreements. I think that backs up. It goes from larger big picture into more specific, but without pigeonholing ourselves into something specific was what I would offer. And Director Newman, please jump in if I'm not clearly articulating the will of the committee.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I understand Chair Shields your concern about the wording, and I think that is one of the spots that we were kind of throwing around some different ways to how do we describe the function of us as a whole.
Yeah. Well, and what we can do tonight, we have the opportunity to approve it this evening, or with a little bit more wordsmithing, right? We could also make sure it's in confirmation items, so that if taking this information on from this evening and just adding the clarity to what governance is, I would also ask if that sentence doesn't necessarily stand alone. The primary purpose of assessment is the improvement of board operations, systems, etc. The board will plan an annual evaluation. That whole thing could be just one paragraph. It's separated by the striking, right, of the information, but not necessarily needs to be separate sentences as separate paragraphs. I think those three sentences really could be combined into a single paragraph and just a little bit of tweaking. And I would definitely be comfortable moving it into confirmation for next meeting and having it improved. But that's my opinion. Please, other directors, if that is not something that's comfortable for you, then please let me know, speak up, and I will. I'll move for a vote tonight, but I'm also comfortable just making it a little cleaner and bringing it back in the confirmation items. All right, making an executive decision. Is it okay by the superintendent committee members, Newman and Mooring, that you clean it up just a tad bit for confirmation items for our next meeting? With the help of our executive assistant, to see who will pull those. It's hard when you're doing this much striking and trying to keep all of the nuances in there.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm comfortable with that. Well, Vice Chair Moran, you said, do you remember your exact words? Operations and what?
Oh man, now it's late.
We can refer to the recording.
Exactly.
That's right. We can't watch YouTube. Systems, processes, and policies that guide a board of directors, I think is systems, systems, processes, and policies that guide our board of directors is what the concept of board governance is.
Yeah.
And that's applicable to all boards, not specifically a school board, right?
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's
we
where
can
we
make
were.
those updates.
Yeah,
that's where we were getting caught up to in our own meeting, is how do we adequately describe that?
Good. Yeah. I thoroughly trust that those kind of, just as you said it tonight, guys, this is really good work and appreciate the time and effort it takes. So yeah, if you're comfortable doing that and bringing it back, we'll put it in confirmation items. And board members, of course, anything that's in confirmation items, you have the opportunity to pull. And so if there was something that you were not feeling good about at that time, we could pull it and have the committee members address the changes that they had made. Any other comments, concerns, directors, before we move to the next one? Right. Thank you guys for your work.
Thank you.
So new business items, we're moving to consideration of the approval of the 26-27 school calendar. Is that correct? I moved down from the agenda, so I'm hoping I'm still on the agenda correctly. 7.2.1, if I got that correct. And would that be Dr. Kasuda?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know that I will review everything that's in the board note. I'd like to present to you the collaboratively designed 2026-27 school year calendar proposal. You can see there that it was developed by a constituent group made up of administrators, classified staff, licensed staff, and representatives from various departments and operational or departments across the district. I've highlighted a number of key points in the calendar from start of the year to when semesters end and begin again, last days of school for different grade levels. I'll say that some of the instructional benefits of this calendar, as the committee has designed it, was to move to alignment between all grade levels bands, elementary, middle, and high school to semesters, creating greater consistency for instructional pacing, grading timelines, and interventions. That allowed us also to align conference and conference planning days and prep days across the grade levels, improving continuity and consistency and communication for our families who are living this calendar as well. We have built in structured preparation and report card work time to support grading consistency and instructional planning. We've also been able to include and increase professional development and collaboration days to support some of the strategic planning and professional learning structures in the district. Let's see here. We've included also a staggered start for kindergarten that supports successful transitions for our younger learners, many of whom may not have experienced school so far, and allows staff to develop routines and deeper relationships with students for a smoother start to the school year. We believe by consolidating all grade bands to the semester schedule, which lines up to the semester schedule that the high school has adopted, minimizes disruption, aligns practices, aligns learning, and increases coherence for the district, across the district. So it's my recommendation that the board approve the adoption of this 2026-27 pre-K-12 school year calendar. I'll also say it's a singular calendar. And for many of you who've been in Centennial for a while, you will have experienced Centennial with multiple calendars, and that was major effort of work of the calendar committee to figure out how we could mesh and compromise and mold and align all that's needed within a calendar, including the instructional minute requirements, legal requirements, like PE and instructional minutes for Division 22, and then lining up with all the days that we get to share to collaborate and improve our practice. So.
Thank you. Starting from the top of our list, Director Harden, you're back at the top.
Thanks. I don't know if it's a typo or not. January 22nd is a Friday, semester 1 ends. Then it says semester 2 begins on January 26th, which is a Tuesday.
It would help if I have the calendar blown up to a size that I can see it.
The typo, it might be, maybe I'm not seeing the date on the sheet right, but it looks like it says January 26th semester.
Semester 1 ends January 22nd. Semester 2 begins on January 26th.
So what's January 25th? That Monday.
It may have been in the board notes a typo. Let me go back to the board notes. January 20th. Yeah, January 25th, or if you're asking what that is in terms of the day, let me see here. I'm pulling it up. January 25th would be a no school report card and semester 2 prep day for the teachers.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there, it does seem like there's a little bit of a gap between the date semester 1 ends and the day semester 2 begins, and that's because of that planning day, which is contractually required.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to make sure we had our I's dotted and T's crossed.
Yes. Yes, appreciate it.
Director Lynn,
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair Moring.
Thank you, Dr. Katsuda. I know a lot of work goes into putting this this calendar work together in the various, and it looks like we had a good cross section of various people involved in the committee. This was a unanimous recommendation out of the calendar committee to adopt this or to put forth these recommendations to us for adoption.
Yes, it was.
Great. That's awesome. That's great to see that level of collaboration taking place across all levels there.
Director Newman.
No questions. I appreciate the efforts going in, especially combining it all into one calendar.
Director Solosky.
Great work to the calendar committee on, merging it all into one. No questions. Ready to make a motion.
Go for it.
I would like to move that we adopt the calendar for the 2026-2027 school year.
Second.
Got the motion and seconder. Only comment from the chair is, wow, it looks so much cleaner. It's so much easier to read. Woof. Congratulations to the efforts of everybody on that committee. I think we've had discussion and questions answered, so we'll just put the motion to you. All those in favor of the motion as presented indicate by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed to the motion to approve? No abstentions. All right. Great work, people. Great work, committee. That was wonderful. All right. Ooh. Now we're moving to our own board meeting schedule. Is that correct? Again, I apologize. I'm scrolling through. Do we have to, Missy, is that something we have to approve? Where'd you go, Missy? There you are.
I'm here.
I apologize. I just have to keep looking across my screen. Everybody.
I'm here. Yes, we do want to approve this.
Okay, so board.
I can share it if you'd like, so folks can look at it.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Yes, please.
All right. Can you see my screen?
There it is.
There it is.
Yes.
Okay, great. There it is.
So starting off with you, Director Lynn, any questions about the board of directors meeting schedule as you see it on your screen?
No, thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Moring.
Thank you. I think we nailed just on July and August of this year. I think we did nail down some times for those meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, so we are looking at a 4 o'clock start time for the July 1st meeting, and that will be virtual. Once this calendar was approved, I was going to go ahead and send out calendar invitations.
Perfect.
The August 12th, the board retreat, I'm still trying to see when Vince Adams' availability is that day. So I know I've sent out a calendar invite for, I think it was a 10 to 2 time frame. I have to go back and look, but that may adjust a little bit, but it is still going to be on that day.
Okay, thank you.
A couple other things, if I can just point out real quick, you'll see the November 18th date, there's an asterisk next to it, and that is because November 11th, which is when we normally would have our board meeting, is a holiday. So talking with board leadership, we moved it back a week. In addition to, you'll see on June 16th, we adjusted that date as well due to the high school and CBA graduation. very similar to what we've done this year as well. We've also kept this calendar very similar to what we've done this year, where we are going to have the work sessions virtual and the regular business meetings in person, unless things change or we need to add special meetings or so on and so forth. So that's kind of the format of the calendar, how it was developed.
Thank you. Director Newman, any questions?
No questions.
Director Solosky?
I'm good, thank you.
Director Harden?
No questions, but just to raise awareness, we'll want to sync the budget committee meetings along with the virtual committee, with the virtual work session time slots.
Thank you. All right, directors, seeing the calendar as presented, do I have a motion to accept?
I move to accept the board meeting schedule for 26-27.
Second.
The motion and seconded to adopt this board meeting schedule. Again, as usual, all those in favor indicate by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Good. I think we are good to go on that. Thank you so much. Doing great, guys. All right, superintendent policy meeting on board member compensation. And who are my presenters this evening? I know it's Director Lynn, you're the facilitator, and Directors Mooring and Newman. You, Director Lynn, you take it over and help me figure that part out.
Thank you. Well, of course, this is just a first read on the board member compensation. As everyone can see, there's a background document, there's a draft policy, and a draft resolutions. This has been a couple years in the making, including the legislature passing it, OSBA getting some clarification, and finally getting us some draft policies. Of course, the first decision point before the board, if and when they decide to pass it, will be whether there should be stipends or not. If they're not, then all the rest of the decisions are moot and we can move on. Of course, the second one is the amount. The legislation allowed up to $500 plus inflation, which is why Portland Public Schools went with something around $528 in theirs. But of course, we don't have to do that. If we decide we're a mid-level school with a mid-level budget, we could decide on a mid-level amount. The third is whether we want to vote on it every year or just have it perpetual until rescinded, changed, or no longer budgeted for. And then when it goes into effect, how soon or how late. Of course, and then the procedure that OSBA worked out is that we will vote on 2 or 3 board member positions at a time so that those board members can avoid a conflict of interest of voting on their own compensation. So if we were to pass it, we could pass it in 3 or 4 chunks to cover all the board positions. That's about it. You can see in the resolutions some of the justifications behind it. It is to increase, participation in working class communities, and Centennial is a working class community. It's to increase diversity to represent our diverse population. Centennial is a very, very diverse population. And again, it doesn't need to be a top amount, but we should take into consideration what people who are on the margins might have to pay for just to get to a meeting on a monthly basis. If you have to get an Uber from work at the last moment to and from a board meeting, that's like $50 a meeting. If they have to do childcare or cover for dinner, then that's another, expense just to come to a board meeting and participate in their community. So again, this is a first reading. Happy to answer any questions for the committee, and hope we can move it forward next month.
Do any of your committee members wish to continue to speak to that more? Whoever you are.
No,
Yeah,
I think
well,
Director Lynn did. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, no, I was gonna say Director Lynn did a great job summarizing our committee's meeting.
Any other, Director Newman, you are also on that
Yeah, I have nothing to add. No, I appreciate what Director Lynn presented.
Okay, thank you. Then we're going to go. So I'm skipping Director Lynn Mooring and Newman because you guys are there, right? Okay. So that opens to down the list. Director Selesky.
I do not have any questions at this time. I think that from what I've read, as we want to continue to increase equity in the school district, this is one thing that we can do to hopefully increase equity on the board, and just kind of level that playing field for everybody so that anyone can be a member of the board. Thank you. That's it.
Director Hardin.
My question, I didn't see it outlined anywhere, but my question is, if we give the stipend once a year annually, but then said board member reneges on their commitment to the community and leaves their position, how do we handle that situation? Is the newly appointed board member allotted the same amount of money? And do we ask the leaving board member for money back?
No, I believe it's on a prorated amount after the fact, and I forget which document it's in, but it would be prorated for actual attendance on the board. So if they, leave after 6 meetings, they would not be compensated for more than 6 meetings.
Okay, and if
It's a monthly stipend, the annual versus perpetual portion is whether or not we would renew it every year or if it would just continue to be paid out monthly until there was no money left or did the policy change or whatnot. I would imagine this will be a line item, going forward in a budget. And so that would just be part of the calculation on that.
Yeah,
Do I
thank
have
you.
that correct, Director Lynn?
Yes, thank you.
And is it tied to attendance in the meetings? So if say a board member is elected but doesn't show up to meetings, are they then prorated? And are we giving are the financial transactions being at the end of the year, or is it the beginning of the year, or throughout? And like I said, it may very well be in there, but I didn't see it outlined.
I'm trying to look it up.
Yeah, that was something I recall us kind of chewing on that aspect of it. Director Hardin, there is a line in there that they may be prorated for service for incomplete months, but we didn't have at the time of our meeting clarification on how we would do that or how we would adequately address that portion of it. I'd hate to think that somebody would go through the trouble of getting elected in a campaign to not show up and collect a stipend. But it's, absolutely, we absolutely need to be accountable to that action, of course. Director Southerton, I don't know if there's anything you might add to that specific question from a business office perspective of processing these stipends and our 1099s for, the year. You're on mute, Director Southerton.
Or we can't hear you. It doesn't look like you're on mute, but yeah.
I can't hear you. Is this any better?
There you go.
All
Yep.
right. Thank you. The legislature has made clear that these are not, that board members are not W-2 income, so it'd be 1099. Be paid out as fee for service, essentially. So we don't have any concerns, just to be clear, from a business office standpoint. We think we'll be able to operationalize it.
Any other questions?
Okay, so
Follow up, Director Hardin?
No other questions. I might reach out and just ask the questions, and maybe I'll look at it with a little more detail in hopes of finding some of those answers myself. But if I can't find them, I might reach out to one or both or all of you and just kind of follow up there. Just some of these outlines, like I love the spirit of it. It makes so much sense in our community. I would hate for financial, serving on the board to be a financial burden for anyone. And I would also like to protect us from a grift.
Superintendent Owens.
Yeah, I was on the committee discussions, and so I can weigh into what Director Harden shared. I think Director Lynn did a really good job of outlining the proposed policy. I'm looking at the specific language in the policy that says stipends will be issued, and then in bracket language monthly, so you could choose monthly or not, but let's say you did. Stipends will be issued monthly and may be prorated for service for incomplete months. And I think what Director Harden is getting to, not to speak for you, but is the distinction of what is an incomplete month. Is it you dropped off the board completely and you didn't complete the year, so you completed 6 months, you get paid for 6 months? Or is it you completed a year, but you no-showed for 40% of the meetings, or you prorated for 40% of the stipend? We, and committee members speak to this, but we intentionally left it as it was written, knowing that that is somewhat subjective language that the board will want to discuss. And I think that it's a good discussion for the board to have in terms of how you want that language to read and how that should be interpreted.
Thank you. Chair Shields. What I'd like to see is an AR that goes along with this for the operational processes, because there may be answers, but just as Director Harden was saying, where the heck are they? And we found out the same is happening in a different one that you're going to see tonight as well. So it might be helpful just to have those procedural things set aside, or if you want it in policy, procedures in policy, you can leave them there too, but it's helpful if it's more easily discernible. That isn't your committee's issue. It's a challenge that sometimes OSBA is not, they just put everything in there, but it's not always digestible. And if we can make it digestible, either by headings or an administrative regulation, setting that out, that's for you to chew on from the first read. I'd also like to have more clarity from the committee about expenses versus stipend. If I am right now, if I have childcare needs, if I have an Uber need, any of those things, Director Lynn, that you were bringing up, which are absolutely the kinds of things that can happen for board members, I am to consider that that is covered under my stipend and that we are not vouchering for expenses any longer. And I'd like to know if that includes meetings that are outside of our board meetings, like our attendance at OSBA functions, things of that nature. I need some clarity about that. So that's one piece I'd like to see more clarity on in our next iteration. That ethics question, Director Lynn, man, you're gonna have to explain that to me, how that voting process works. I understand there was something in here when I was reading it, and I really got a little concerned. And in the whereas board members understand their ethical obligations, have declared conflicts of interest, and will abstain from participation in discussion and votes required by ORS. I don't know if that is what we're talking about, the ORS 244.120. I honestly have no idea. It was a question that I'd written down for myself. And then your recommendation for what's going to happen. The budget committee just went through the budget. The impact of this for assuming we're not doing anything for 25, 26. I'm assuming, I guess I should have said that we're moving forward with this after approval in 26, 27. It's not in the budget. So some help from the business office about how that would be dealt with, and what is the annual hit for 7 board members? I didn't do the math.
Did you have that on hand, Paul? I forget. It was
Well, it depends on what the board assesses, right? But if you, sorry, microphone check. Are you all hearing me? Okay, great. Yeah, so if we just did, the $500, we didn't index it for inflation, you're looking at $3,500 a month or $42,000 per year. So
$42,000 to give stipends to all 7 board members who accept it, because there is the option for board members to opt out, as I read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that that's something to consider, board members, that there's a $42,000 hit per year, plus if you are going to do compensation. I don't disagree necessarily with the intent, but I'd like to hear if you've done any research on that it can help them. I'm reading from the whereases. It can help reduce barriers to participation, promote diversity of representation, and acknowledge the significant commitment required to effectively fulfill their duties. If this 500 or whatever dollar amount this board sets is to cover the expense of being a board member, then I've never understood why just making it more clear that any expense that I could incur and list all of those things that are eligible for reimbursement doesn't make more sense than a blanket amount of money per board member that could accumulate to a $42,000 hit. That's my personal opinion about that. I think we can make it clear that you are not going to be out of pocket with your expenses through the reimbursement process. So I don't know. It's
So
like
would that,
public
is
service.
the scheme you're thinking about that like very poor people would have to produce receipts?
No, everybody has to produce receipts. Why would you say poor people have to produce receipts?
Well, because you're talking about compensation and for expenses versus a stipend for serving on the board. There's already a separate expenses, which if there's clarification needed there. But again, if we're placing additional burdens while we're trying to alleviate burdens, then we're fighting against our cause.
So then explain to me, am I going to be getting a potential $500 stipend plus reimbursement for expenses? And what does that list of expenses that qualify?
No, the expenses are for other board district. It says for attending conferences or other things that are part of board business. That's already been part of policy. That's not being changed. This is a separate for just board stipend.
Okay, I see Rose's hand is up, so I'll defer, Rose.
What I would like to say is that there is a notion of unpaid labor and what we recognize in people, and so what we ask of people. And so for you and me, it may be easy to volunteer, but for a person of color, asking them to give unpaid labor in something can be offensive. And so it's about making sure that everyone feels I don't know. I know that I don't have it right in front of me, but I know there's this notion of this this idea of unpaid labor, and not wanting, like, yeah, to be honest, like some of us may be struggling more than others. Some of us may be retired. Some of us may not be working, right? And so whatever we need to be able to bring us to the table, I think we need to look at that.
Dr. Mooring has his hand up.
Yeah, but I've spoken, so if anybody else who hasn't had a chance yet wants to jump in, I would happily defer to them first.
No, I think this is great. Everybody's had an opportunity to share. And so this is good. Raise your hand for more context information to share. It's totally appropriate.
Thank you, Chair Shields. I appreciate your questions and follow up on some of those things. And I think that there is some some good clarity. We could go back and talk about, if there are stipends, certain expenses, may not be covered under reimbursement. What does that look like, right? What does external events look like? Because they're not technically covered right now and they're not required attendance for us either, right? And then I know we don't have any local research on whether or not these stipends have improved participation, but we can certainly look and see if there's anything nationally.
And there have been some
Yeah.
boards who've done this, right? That like you just mentioned, I think Portland Public has had it in their
Yeah, they just started it and they just elected their people at the same last year as well. So I don't think that there's enough body of evidence there to find out, but there are over a dozen states that have had these stipends already for their school boards. So I think we might be able to pull some research as much as we can to look at look at that and look at their intentions. So, and there's some good stuff on there for take back to the committee for us to kind of chew on a little bit.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other director have a question to have the committee work with or chew on a bit? So then the committee will either bring it back, right? And we'll work on that and any other additional narrowing maybe from what you've heard this evening. That'll be appropriate, whether it be a second read or another draft. You can kind of figure that out, guys, and then bring it on back and see where we will be in the process. But we would want to get it in place prior to the new school year. That's obviously going to be the goal for that. So we'll make sure that we get that done. So thank you, everybody. It's a lot of work, we know. Oh,
Thank you, everybody.
one more question. Maybe this question is for Missy. Missy, there was a list of 2030 April. It was a dump in April of board policies. And there's like 20, 30 of them, which we got caught up in our superintendent committee. Was there anything that had impact on this committee for compensation?
Let me take a look and double check. I don't want to misspeak. So let me take a look and then I will let you know. I'll chat it.
Okay, just let the committee know. I mean, committee members, we were surprised when we were doing our work that suddenly there was an April missive from OSBA that moved and changed the work that we were doing. So it would be just know that Missy will get a hold of you if there's something in that April. I would have called it a dump of that because there were so many changes that are coming our way, by the way, that we'll be having to deal with.
And I'm looking at it now, Chair Shields, and I'm not seeing anything related to stipends.
Okay, cool, good. You lucked out, guys. That's good information. All right, next policy is the first read of policy and a potential AR for DBEA, the Budget Committee. And that has been, the committee is myself, Director Hardin, Superintendent Owens, Director Southerton, and our facilitator is Director Selesky. So Director Selesky, here you go.
Thank you, Chair Shields. I don't have the capability of sharing it on screen. Missy, can you or someone share it on screen? Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it in board book. It was want to give some real kudos to Chair Shields for doing a lot of the legwork and language on this policy. As she mentioned, it changed in April as we were meeting. And so we had to change a little bit again. But the intention of this policy and attached AR is really to just kind of put out let's see here, like the budget committee membership terms and how we elect them, kind of following the snafu that happened this past year where we kind of strung it out, and we just really want to make sure that this looks like what the board would like going forward. And so I'm not going to go through it line by line. It is getting late, and hopefully you all prepared. I would love to go around if there's any questions or comments, and I would love to invite the people from my committee to also share anything before we go around the room.
Director Harden, you were on the committee.
Yes, I appreciated, this will be a great opportunity for us to meet, in a semi-interview process, the budget committee members, as well as meeting them before they're on it, as well as allowing for more people's engagement, and then we can appoint as needed by the term, if that makes sense. There's no more auto renewals of anyone's, everyone goes up for the positions at the end of the term. If it's someone that's repeated, if there's 3 spots and 4 applicants, then we would select, after the interview process, we'd appoint 3 of them based on that. And we kind of like that factor. One thing I am noticing, after the last conversation with the stipend, we may need to adjust in the AR is that no appointed budget committee member may receive any type of compensation from the district. We might need to tweak that if we do have a stipend, and just maybe update some language there.
And let me speak to that, Director Harden. I was a member of this committee. The OSBA has a redundancy situation again. They weren't clear. It's something we're having to put out back to OSBA because if we decide the board members are getting a stipend, then we're going to have to be clear in this language that they were clear in the language that committee members were not going to receive a stipend. That's what it says. And yet board members are committee members. So it was a confusing little piece of wording situation. Missy's been really good about going out to OSBA for clarification on that. So we'll be able to hopefully speak to that with more clarity. And Missy, if you could go down to the vacancies section, which is what Director Harden was talking about. The other thing that we discovered, which we didn't know and we hadn't been following through with, is that let's say somebody has to resign or they've moved out of the district, then we would be in a process of interviewing that for that vacant position, but it starts another 3-year term. It's not, they don't pick up on the last 2 years or something of that nature. And one of the things that we will bring to you separate from this potential change in policy and potential AR is a staggering, because we're required again by policy to do to try to be staggering these positions the best we can. So we're going to be looking at our current membership and where individuals would be dropping off anyway after their 3-year commitment. They do have the right to re-up, but we're supposed to do a better job of staggering than we have. We can start with that, but based on resignations or moving out of district or whatever, I don't know how much control we really have over something like that, but it is the policy recommendation. So I'll open it up to questions. Director, see, where am I in my list? I'm trying to keep it. Well, just go back to Director Lynn. Let's start with you again, please. Thank you.
No, I'm good. Thank you, everybody.
Director Morin.
Thank you. I appreciate the committee's work on this. I know this is another one of our policies that are quite complex and required a lot of clarity. I know there's a lot that went into producing this. So thank you for doing that. On the, it looks good. I like where it's headed, and I would echo all the things that need to be kind of reworked or tweaked. And then I think the thing that I would add, maybe you talked about this as a committee, is if there are term limits to how often somebody could reapply for their position, right?
We discussed term limits a little bit. In fact, it had been discussed that a person after 2 rotations of 3-year terms, so a total of 6, might be asked to take a year of hiatus. When we were kind of musing over this is when we got the April upgrade. And that I apologize. That sort of dropped away a bit, but as Director Hardin has already stated, every time your time is up, you have to reapply. And so it would be at the the board would know, the board members who are voting will know that a person has served maybe a total of 6 years. And if there are candidates and they choose not to select the person that's had that much prior service, it's really the board's vote for the number of applicants that we have for the open positions. Director Hardin, did I state that in any way differently than you intended it to be stated?
No, yeah.
Can I say one thing really
Yes,
fast?
please.
I would say that the idea of term limits, why we kind of shied away from that was because there's so many, we don't want to handcuff ourselves to something that we have to hold on to. And if there is a huge upheaval of the board, or if, like there's somebody that has been there, and has the expertise that we maybe need for that season, like we don't want to count out somebody who would be beneficial to be on our board just because they've been there for too long. But with the term limits of our board, I would say that that will refresh enough so that hopefully, uh, what am I trying to say? Oh, I lost it. I'm so sorry.
No worries. I think that these are the kinds of questions, though, that we could add clarity as much as we can from our previous discussion. One question that we would ask you as members, board members, in the administrative regulation, which we have more control of, we had also discussed including a sample calendar so that people who would be looking, we would want to send the AR to them so they could get the clarity that a budget committee process would have. And maybe even the interview questions could be a sample in the AR, but we didn't as a committee get that far as to making a recommendation to you at this time.
I would
Go
like
ahead.
to finish and just say that if there are people who are interested in still having term limits in this, I'd love to hear about that from you guys, so that we can edit that. I wanted to give you our understanding of why we did what we did, but I'd love to hear more feedback if there is some.
Yeah, Director Maureen?
Yeah, I want to make sure that we give the other directors the chance to weigh in. I did have a quick follow-up on the term limits that I wanted to add, but I don't want to take time away from anyone else.
Everyone's had a chance. We've rotated through. It's open
Perfect.
time.
Thank you for keeping track of that, because I have not been keeping track of who has had a chance. And thank you, Director Slawski, for explaining the thinking of the group. On the idea of term limits, one of the reasons we went back and decided this particular policy was the catalyst for all of our policy review, right? And I believe it was brought up then a few months ago that you know, if we're trying to increase equity and representation and things like that, if I'm somebody who might be new to the process and I see, oh, well, this person's already been on this committee for 2, 3, 5 cycles, whatever it may be. What are my chances of actually getting selected if I have to go up against somebody like that? So I think the idea of term limits is something that um, because these are appointed positions, not elected positions, I think the idea of term limits helps promote that diversity and equity factor into that and allowing other people the opportunity to serve and without, running a campaign. Whereas, electeds across all levels of government are loath to give themselves term limits because if the people want them to continue, the people should ultimately have that say. But in this case, the people is a very limited group of us. Right. And so I would just say, just something to continue chewing on.
Yeah.
In many of our conversations throughout tonight, we've looked at that equity lens, use that equity lens, and is there an opportunity to apply that in this situation too?
Yeah, for sure.
With so thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Director Newman?
Coming off mute here. Sorry. You actually hadn't cycled through to me.
Did I screw up? Dang it, I was doing so
I
well.
wouldn't have used that strong of a language. Now I'm trying to remember what my question was though. So I do have a question. I'm actually still kind of, especially with Vice Chair Mooring's comment about term limits and the equity. I'm like, that is really, I think that is something to really consider, the visual impact or that kind of the soft barrier that it presents. But now my question is, so we do talk about to be eligible for appointment, the appointed member must live and be registered to vote in the district. Do we need language anywhere that's just really clear that if you move out of the district or if you no longer meet these requirements, you need to resign or that you must resign? Because it's saying to be eligible for appointment in the AR, but you
Right.
know.
Right. I think that committee members, can we kind of take that as potential friendly amendment that we could put in there?
Yeah.
To be more clear. Thank you. That makes sense. We did, Director Mooring, we did have draft language about term limits.
Yep.
And then we didn't because of our discussion, right? This
Yep.
discussion is so important to us. So facilitator Stilowski, maybe what we could do is put that draft language in. You know how we kind of do the bracket thing, like
Yep.
this or that? So I would imagine maybe we are not going to have a second read for adoption, maybe just another draft read.
Yeah.
Right?
With maybe some voting as opposed to like which version does the board feel more confident?
Okay.
Standing behind. Yeah.
All right. And then taking in the comments that you've all given to us this evening. This has been helpful for the team. We did have Director Southerton and Superintendent Owens on this committee to help us as well. Do either of you have any more input or questions, concerns before we move off of this topic? First read.
I would just add to this that Missy and I had tracked a couple of things that we wanted to make sure to check with OSBA about between reads, which were the appointment to fill a vacated position would begin a 3-year term. We just want to make sure that that's legally permissible. And then no appointed, as Director Harden noted, budget committee member may receive any type of compensation from the district. And so we just wanted to make sure if the board were to pass such a policy, that is described in such a way that it doesn't preclude board members by virtue of a different policy of not being able to receive that stipend.
James, could we just be more specific and say no budget committee member will receive payment for in regards to being a budget committee member?
Well, I think that this is the needle that because Chair Shields had recently added the word appointed into the language, which would be if you were an appointed budget rather than elected. And so I think that that language was already intended to thread that needle, but
Great.
but yeah, I think some
It
way of
was
adding some explicitness
Right.
would be helpful there.
it was like they left out words, which is
Yeah.
not surprising. This is my personal bias that comes out about OSBA language. And if you had seen the first draft when we were moving around language, just to make sure that paragraphs met up with other paragraphs of the like topic, it would have made you go blind. So anyway, thank you everybody for your engagement on this. Director Southerton, you're good. You wave. Yeah, okay, great. Then we are on to future agenda items. Number 8, Superintendent Owens, can you help us with that?
All right, so we have the last board meeting of the fiscal year in June, and there's a lot on it. We have the LGBTQIA plus Pride Month proclamation, introduction of new CHS Assistant Principal Emily Rios. Spring sports recognition is earmarked for that date as well. The 25-26 budget adoption presentation hearing, the roadmap 27 third trimester update, the 26-27 budget calendar, which I think this policy may kind of preclude that because there's some considerations relative to how the budget calendar is structured based on how the board considers the policy and related AR. Comprehensive substance use prevention and intervention plan, 26-27 student fees, some revisits on policies, potentially a couple new ones we'll see, and then superintendent eval.
Whoa. About a couple things there. Prepare for a long meeting. We will not have a budget meeting prior to this, so we will be starting at a regular time, which is going to be helpful. The superintendent evaluation, you will be getting some information prior to. You're going to have homework to do, so be mindful and watch for that as well. And the thing that's nice is that we are a board that moves together into the next year. So if we decide that something does need to take, like the budget, committee policy, if we find that we're just got too much to go, then we could maybe leave that to our July or August meeting for to finish it off if necessary. I don't think that would hurt us. So we will do what we have to do, which is things that end our year. And then those that could be based on Superintendent Owens and Executive Assistant Grindle will let us know that we can delay for another month on something. We'll move for that. Anything else? Go to the order, Director Harden. Future agenda items are go to the order before we adjourn. Nothing. Dr. Lynn? Nothing. Vice Chair Maureen? He's good. Dr. Newman?
Good, thank you.
Nothing.
Got it. Director Slusky?
No.
Chair Shields already made my comment. Again, you guys, really good work. You're so good about hanging in there on these really long nights. So it's much, much, much appreciated. And then other than that, Superintendent Owens, anything else before we say goodnight to one another?
I think you've heard enough from me. Appreciate y'all.
All right. Good night. We are adjourned at 9:50. Is it 9:51? Jeez. Crazy. All right.